Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
I'm not a good pretender, I never could live a lie. I said too much, and let it get the best of me, until it took the rest of me. I thought it was worth the fight, to fight for what's right, to right all the wrongs, to sing in our songs, to know we belong. No one understands, they don't have the desire, got the legs in the fire, and I do it again. We give it all we can, all we have is desire, got the legs in the fire, we burn ourselves and never say, never say, never say, never again. I never say, never say, never say, never again. I learned more from one enemy than from 1,000 friends. That heaven takes care of the fools and scoundrels in the end. You learn more from one lie than from 1,000 truths.
Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight we'll be broadcasting to you on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Odyssey Radio. Remember, you can access our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire, get some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to some Bumblefoot and so much more. We're going to have a great show tonight. Welcome to the show. So glad that you can be with us right here at Spaced Out Radio After Hours on this fine Sunday. We're going to be going into some really good stuff with Canadian researcher Victor Viggiani tonight. So definitely can't wait until we're joined by him, and that'll be in a few moments here. I definitely just want to make sure that we welcome in our guests, our viewers, our family into the show tonight. We do really appreciate all of your support for Spaced Out Radio. And let me go ahead and see who came in first. Who was it that came in first? I got a heads up, and it looks like it's going to be Race Fan with the gold, Dogface with the silver, and then Penny with the bronze. Penny with the bronze. Let's go ahead and take a look here and see who else has decided to join us here tonight on this fantastic Sunday right here at After Hours. Let's see. Okay, taking a look here. We are looking at, let's see, Race Fan saying, good evening, Rob. Appreciate you coming on in, Race Fan. Thanks for showing up. Roger Murray showing June 25th, 1987, 37th anniversary, 40 history UFO foreign press conference, Dr. Bud Hopkins, nuclear physicist Stanton T. Friedman, and the late, great Dr. Bruce Maccabee, who passed away at age 83 this year. Appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us, Roger Murray, like you always do. You always keep it official, drop some knowledge on us and get us going here. Let's see, who else do we have coming in here? We have Let's see. Eternity Eternal coming in saying, hi, Rob G. Hi, Eternity Eternal. Thanks for coming on in and joining us tonight and joining the show. Lars Jansen. Silent J. Gotta remember that. Remember that. Thanks for coming on in saying good morning all. With the horn emojis and the heart emoji. Thanks for coming on in. We do appreciate you showing up here tonight. Let's see, what else do we have? Looking down the list, we have Reverend Cosmic Joe Chronicles saying, hi, Rob G. Hey there, Reverend Cosmic Joe. Appreciate you showing on up. We got Kurt M. stepping in the building saying, hi, race fan. Hey, Kurt M. Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming in to Space Out Radio After Hours. We got Aloha Dave Sightings saying, saludos a todo de Mexico, which everyone, I hope you know by now, is greetings to everyone from Mexico. Keeping us bilingual, we do appreciate you showing up and doing that as well. Aloha Dave. Let's see, moving down the list here, we got Richard Minnick. Good evening. Good evening, Richard Minnick. Thank you for showing up here and supporting the After Hours. Thanks for getting it in. Because we're going to have an awesome weekend. We're going to finish this weekend and have an awesome week, I should say, because we always want to manifest an awesome week. And I guarantee you're going to have that. So let's go ahead and see who else has shown on up tonight. Looks like we got is this a new name? Maybe. For me, it is. Lady Raven Moon saying, hey, everyone. Lady Raven Moon. Thank you so much for coming in. First time I'm seeing your name, so I got to give you the spiel. You tuned in to After Hours. You can catch us right here Saturday and Sundays from 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. Pacific. You can catch Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, her show just ended, which would be 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. So you watch her show, you roll right on over here to this show, and then we go right in. We get it going on. So appreciate you showing on up. And then David Scott, who is the conductor of the Wu Train, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific until midnight. So 7 days a week. And then soon to come, starting actually this Friday, upcoming Friday, we're going to have Element 115, which is Lee and Jack's new show. And so they'll be kicking that off. And it's just another wonderful addition to Spaced Out Radio. So should be awesome. Can't wait. And yeah, just to let you know, 7 days a week, you're going to find something going on right here at Spaced Out Radio. So thanks for coming in. Welcome. And we'd love to see you back for sure. Moving down the list here, we got my guy, Brown Dwarf. Brown Dwarf saying, good evening, Brown Dwarf. Thanks for coming on in. We do appreciate you showing on up. Let's see, we got Shadow Seekers Paranormal. Yes, saying hi everyone. Hi, Shadow Seekers Paranormal. Thanks so much for coming in. We do appreciate you. Let's see. We are moving down the list here. We have Amy. Amy saying, hello, lovely peeps. Hello, Amy. Thanks so much for coming in. We do appreciate you coming in to the show tonight. Also, Paranormal Pixie Laura definitely coming in saying, good evening, folks. Good evening, Paranormal Pixie Laura. Thanks for showing up here as you always do, bringing the axe and waving that axe and getting trolls up out of here if they act up. So we do appreciate you showing up and participating and dropping the axe when needed. Thanks so much for coming in, Pixie. Let's see, moving down the list here. What else? Who else do we have here? We have Flat Six. Flat Six has definitely stepped in the building. Flat Six, want to thank you for coming on in. You always show up and you bring it in. So we appreciate you bringing the love, bringing the knowledge, and everything right on into the show. So thanks for coming on in, Flat Six. Miss Mary saying hello with the wavy hand emoji. We definitely appreciate you for coming on in, Miss Mary. Thanks for showing up and supporting Spaced Out Radio tonight. Let's see. Who else do we have? We got Bomber. Bomber stepped in saying, hey, Robbie Sweets, peace, love, etc. All okay. We love it. Thanks for bringing the love. Thanks for bringing that great energy. That's what we need. And we do appreciate you doing that as well. Let's see. Moving down the list, we have We have Shadow Seekers. Oh, did we get you? Shadow Seekers Paranormal. Sometimes I say the same name twice. It doesn't matter. Thank you for coming on in. We do appreciate you. We got John Lamb as well, saying hello, Mr. Rob G. Hello, John Lamb. Thanks for coming in tonight. We got Phyllis Mouchette Perry saying, hey, Rob G. Hey, Phyllis Mouchette Perry. Thanks for coming on in and supporting the show. We do appreciate your patronage. Your showing up, your attendance is needed tonight. We got Bolinium saying, hey, Rob. Hey, fellow space travelers. Hey, Bolinium. Thanks so much for coming on in. We do appreciate you. Flat 6. I, too, can own the night, but I didn't even finish high school. 90s infomercial vibe from me. That's funny. That's definitely funny. Appreciate you coming in. Corey saying, you the man, Mr. Rob G. No, you the man, Corey. Appreciate you for coming on in. Or lady. I didn't even think about that. You can be a lady as well, Corey. I'm sure you'll let me know in the chat, but definitely appreciate you coming on in. And thanks for being who you are. Do appreciate you. All right. So Paranormal Pixie Laura saying my mic doesn't sound like it's on. Coming through the computer, maybe. Okay, well, we don't like that. So let me make sure. For me, my mic should be good. It should be good. Laura, it should be good. Test. Okay, yeah, we should be good. All right, moving down the list here, we have. Oh, that was last night. Oh, okay. Appreciate you, race fan. Well, race fan's always number one anyway. So, Cryptid Search, thanks for coming on in. We do appreciate you showing on up. Jessica S. saying, hi, Victor Viggiani. Yes, Victor's in the back and will be joining us shortly. Thanks for coming on in, Jessica S. We do appreciate you showing up here tonight. And let's see. We got, who else? Who else is here? Who else has joined us? I think that's almost it. Pretty much. Are we there? Patrick Noble saying, hey, Rob. Hello, Patrick Noble. Thanks for showing on up tonight. The Body Electric Supplement is here. Hey, Body Electric. Thanks for coming on in. Saying hello there. Hello right back to you. Thanks for coming on in and joining the show tonight. We do appreciate it. Let's see. Moving down the list. We got you, and we are looking for Robert Lamont Jr. There he is. All right, saying hello from Connecticut. Okay, we like that. Thanks for coming on in, Robert Lamont Jr. We got people coming in from all over the country, all over the world. Let's see. Limp Disket. Okay, what's the word? Limp Disket? Thanks so much for coming on in. We appreciate you showing on up. I think it's the first time I've seen your name here, so definitely welcome to the show. We do appreciate you coming in. We got Poncho Zork saying at Space Out Radio, hey, Rob G. Hey, Poncho Zork, thanks for coming on in. Thanks for showing up tonight. We got Magneticus Attractus, 5x5 here, or 5x5. Okay. Yeah. All right, Magneticus. There you go again. Appreciate you coming on in. Thanks for showing up. Let's see. Who else do we got here? I think we are pretty much there. We're at the bottom of the list. Latchkey Hustle snuck in saying, hey, Rob G. Hey, Latchkey Hustle. Thanks for coming on in. All the World's a Stage saying hi. Hi, All the World's a Stage. Thanks for showing on up. Appreciate you. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it here. So let's go ahead and get into the show. We do have UFO researcher Victor Viggiani with us, along with he's a long list of accolades. We've had him here before. He's definitely a great friend of the show. And we're going to go ahead and bring him in just a moment. Let me go ahead. I got to grab something real quick. Let me run our swag commercial, and then I will be right back with you.
Hey, everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com. Shop there today and make yourself look good.
I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest of the night, Mr. Victor Viggiani. And hello, Victor. Hi, how are you this evening?
Just fine, Rob.
All right. So, man, it's been a while.
Yeah, for sure.
I know, you are a UFO researcher based out in Canada. We last time you came in, there was so much going on within ufology. There was just so much to talk about. But this year has been dead thus far. We've only had a few things really happen in the field. So I wanted to tackle some of the things that have happened so far this year. First of all, I did want to start off just knowing if you could fill us in on anything going on in Canada, or is it just as dead out there as it is here?
Well, I don't know if you could categorize things as dead, Rob. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're really not picking up on, I guess, both in the United States and Canada, as well as in Europe. Just a lot's going on, really, a lot of things that are happening that I guess it's all part of the scenario that because this kind of information isn't really making it to the quote unquote mainstream media news. It's not the preeminent detail that you're going to get either on the front page of any given newspaper or 60 Minutes or MSNBC or News Nation, although News Nation's a great way to catch up on this information. They are doing a great job. But mainstream media, by and large, is really ignoring this issue. And that's one of the reasons why I think some people think things are quiet. But it's anything but the case, because there's just so much going on behind the scenes that that's why some of our researchers are doing what they're doing. That's the whole thing, that we're fighting against this whole paradigm of silence of the mainstream media that really is not allowing people to see what's beyond the glass ceiling. And I don't fault people for doing that. And I don't fault the media necessarily. But there is a lot of quiet mendacity, if you want to call it that. I'm not quite sure what else you could, but it's a concerted effort to keep this stuff under the rug. And that is almost as big an issue, as far as I'm concerned, as the UFO issue itself is. The concerted effort that the government, the Pentagon, and different factions internationally are going to, the lengths that they're going to keep this stuff under the rug is extraordinary. They're just going out of their way to make sure that the common folk, the common person, or the people who are even just a little bit more than curious, like me, do not get a handle on what's going on. And that, if anything else, is probably one of the biggest crimes that's happening. Not just the level of secrecy that's going on. That's been going on for over 75 years, now broaching 80. But the fact of the matter is, right now, the idea that this level of secrecy or repression of information is becoming just as big as the UFO issue itself is. So in terms of what's going on, I don't know where you want me to start with the list, but up here in Canada, I'll give you an example. Up here in Canada, I don't know if people are aware of this. Canadians should be aware of it, and we're doing something about this. And basically, it's to do with a member of Parliament. His name is Larry Maguire, and he's a member of the Canadian Parliament from Manitoba, and he's a representative. He probably, I would imagine, similar to a representative in the House of Representatives in the United States, in the Congress. And what happened was Larry Maguire found out that there were some sort of craft buzzing over, or hovering over restricted airspace over our nuclear facilities here in Ontario and out on the East Coast. Now, we have no military nuclear facilities where we launch missiles. Canada doesn't have any of that stuff, but we do have many nuclear energy facilities. And he found out through some researchers in the East Coast and here in Ontario that there were craft hovering over these nuclear installations. Now, that is not really new, because it's happening over military installations in the United States and in Russia and in the UK. But these ones that were going over some of their facilities here in Canada were puzzling, and he found out about it. And what he did was, at the time he was the vice chair of a committee in the House of Commons, and he sat down during a meeting with the deputy minister of safety and national security, John Hannaford, and he threw a few questions at the deputy minister. One of the questions was he aware that some of our nuclear facilities were being overflown by craft of unknown origin? And as would be the case, either out of absolute ignorance or feigned ignorance, the deputy minister just looked at Larry McGuire and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. I've not heard that at all. There's been no information about that coming across my desk." So Larry nodded his head. And so he said, "Are you okay? I'll get another question for you. Are you aware of what's going on in the United States Senate with the National Disclosure Act that Chuck Schumer and Michael Rounds have succeeded in getting passed or put forward, at least at that time?" This is back in March of 21. Are you aware of that particular act? And once again, the minister drew a blank on that. He had no idea what Larry McGuire was talking about. He had no concept. Either he was faking it or he just didn't know. I kind of believe that he didn't know. I don't think someone like that would be so silly as to lie during a committee meeting, which would probably be a prosecutable offense if he was accused of something like that within the context of a legally deputized committee. So he would not be lying. I think he just didn't know. And from there, after that, Larry McGuire took off. He started to dig deeper and deeper, and he found out that this stuff was, first of all, was really happening. And then he became recognized here in Canada on CTV, the Canadian television network. And he had several interviews by Joy Melbon and the CTV Nightly News. I think he did 2 or 3 interviews. Very, very well done, very articulate. He outlined all the facts about the facilities being buzzed over by these unknown craft. And also, he, as recently, as far back as March of last year, he spoke at the Soul Foundation. It's one of the preeminent foundations at Stanford University. And at the Stanford University symposium on UAP, he joined the likes of Hal Puthoff and Chris Mellon and several other high-level dignitaries in speaking to the group about UAP, which is unprecedented. No other Canadian Prime Minister, or rather a member of Parliament, has been able to get into any of these symposiums and speak directly to the symposium about what's going on in Canada and why we're trying to get to the truth here in Canada. So Larry McGuire has really done a whole lot to get this thing moving in Canada. And I've spoken to his office at least a dozen times, and getting information as to how far he wants to push this issue. What is he willing to do to get this thing mobilized? And I think he's getting ready to make some sort of public move. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But here in Toronto, what I'm going to be doing is assisting him with a move to inform other members of Parliament. So I have plans to develop a letter, some sort of petition, call it what you wish, and we are going to be sending it out to all 325 members of Parliament pretty soon. Now, we have to decide whether or not to do this now or wait till September when Parliament reconvenes, because right now Parliament is no longer in session. It'll be taking its summer recess until, I believe, the second or third week in September. So we have to find out exactly how we're going to manage that issue. But we're going to be mustering our forces and developing all kinds of contact tools for people here in Canada to express their concerns about the UAP issue here in Canada. So that's kind of what's going on up here. Plus, there are a few other things, but that's the main thrust of information that's going on here in Canada.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's good to know. I mean, I'm probably a little over dramatic when I said dead, but I think that there have been a few things happening, but I guess more to say not probably some of the things that we're hoping to happen or expecting to happen. Some of the bigger things, but okay. With that being said, we know, or Carl Nell spoke earlier this year at the SALT conference and made some pretty huge statements there. What did you think about what he said, and where do you think that puts us?
Well, it was really a game changer for me and for a lot of people. Nell spoke very frankly during that interview. I was really surprised at his level of frankness about it, and quite honestly, his matter of fact approach to what he was saying. He was saying something, and you could tell by the cadence of his words, the way he was talking, that this was essentially old hat to him, and this is stuff that he's known for a long time.
Yeah.
And now, how he would be knowing that much about it, for how long he did know about it, it probably was a long time. But things like that have a way of percolating to the surface, Bob. And this is what happened with Nell. It got to a point where he was invited to the SALT conference, and he just literally blew the lid off the interview by stating that David Grush was exactly right in doing and saying what he said about artifacts that of non-human origin, okay, and that extraterrestrials were in fact visiting the planet, and that we were engaging in crash retrieval programs.
Yeah.
And those three things, they may be new to some of your listeners, but they're not new to me. Back as far as I would imagine late 70s or even early 80s, when we were on the radio program Strange Days Indeed here in Toronto on CFRB, we interviewed Clifford Stone. And Clifford Stone at that time told exactly the same, but probably even more specific information about crash retrieval, because he was part of a team that went out and actually retrieved crash material and bodies. And I just recently did an interview probably how far back was it? I think it was just before Clifford passed away last year. Richard Serrett and I did a 45-minute interview with it, and Clifford Stone told his story again. And it was a 45-minute interview, and towards the end of the interview, with all the information that was coming forward, at the end of the interview, the last 6 or 7 minutes, and I had the interview, and I should put it up soon, but the man cried.
Wow.
He was actually in tears because of what he had done, how he had covered it up, or at least not covered it up, how he did not speak about it as specifically and as openly as he wanted to, the measures to which the people in charge kept him on a very, very short leash. They categorized him as a typing clerk in the department that he was in. Meanwhile, this man is off into the field and exercises that involved moving and coordinating bodies and crash elements off the scene of the crash. And he did it not just once, not twice, but many, many times. Then fast forward, you have someone like Grush coming forward and saying what he said, and then compounding that, Nell saying what he said at the SALT conference. These are just more of these waves that are hitting the shore, and they just keep on hitting the shore. But the problem is there's a brick wall that's not allowing that water to get right into the city and wash through all the secrecy and mendacity and get down into the basement of these media companies and short circuiting their wires, so they realize what the hell is going on, and we'd better start reporting on this stuff because we're not doing a very good job of it. And people like Nell and Clifford Stone and a lot of other people too are just knocking at the doors to make sure that we make some effort to get the mainstream media off their butts and do something about this, because it has to be the front page story every single day. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that.
Right.
But we're talking about civilizations that are 3, 4, 5 billion years in advance of us, and they're making contact with us. Why? And not only that, the question of contact is so big because whoever these people are, and I have no idea who they are, I don't pretend to know. I have a few ideas of who they might be, where they might be from, but that's only because of the experiences that I've had with other people, other researchers. But I don't think anybody definitely knows what's going on. But the problem there is, not only are they coming to this planet to do what they're doing, and they've been doing it for a long, long time. They're doing the same damn thing on other planets too.
I
Other
don't think
planets
so.
like other planets like ours, other planets that may be more advanced than ours, other planets that are less advanced than ours. How are they interacting with those planets also?
Right.
And so that kind of information that Nell brought forward, and he tickled all that kind of stuff, to the point where, yeah, we do have these programs going on, and the Pentagon knows about it, and Arrow is lying through their teeth, basically is what he said. And he's just pointing to the fact that they opened the program with, that there is so much secrecy still involved in this. Now they're leaking little bits and pieces. They're throwing us bones every once in a while, and we chew on the bone, and all of a sudden another one appears down 50 yards from us. We go over to that bone, chew on it for a while, and then another one appears down over, and then we chew on that bone for a while. So it's a very, very orchestrated methodology of throwing you bits and pieces of information, and at some point some of it's real and some of it's not, or some of it's authentic and some of it's just disinformation. And the big difficulty here is that it's getting so damn hard to figure out which is authentic and which is not. And that's the problem. And that's the scenario that the Pentagon is creating, the Department of Defense in the United States, and all of the other, it's 2 or 3 alphabet letter agencies are doing. They're all doing the same damn thing. So they're doing a good job of covering their tracks and making people feel, well, there's really not a lot going on. Okay, well, yeah, we've heard that before. Well, yeah, you're damn right we heard it before, because it's been the same story all over again, because they've kept it off the front pages of the newspapers, and it's not allowing people to talk about this stuff. And that's the whole really dramatically criminal, and I use the word criminal, type of behavior that the government is engaging in to keep this stuff away from the common folk. You and I right now should be on CBC.
Right.
We
Right.
should have 1.4 million listeners listening and watching to us right now. But
Yeah.
somehow, Rob, they're just not letting us do it. And I want to know why, and I want to push the envelope to a point where they recognize what they're doing.
Like, how does that, how does that keep happening? How do we keep having big moments like that when you have a Grush, you have a Gallaudet at the end of last year, you have a Carl Nell,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not pushing over that seawall. You know what I mean? Like like you mentioned, how is it? What tactic are they using to kind of suppress that information? I don't get it.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I don't get it either. The tactics that they're using is they're numbing us down with other information. That's part of the whole scenario. The other information that they throw at us consistently, every single day. Just pick up a newspaper. Just pick up listen to a radio station newscast. Treadmill your way through the internet if you can, and try to see what people are digesting as news today. Just have a look at that. I mean, that to me, I'm still one who still gets a newspaper every single morning. Okay, I get the Toronto Star, and I'm not saying it's a pinnacle of truth or anything like that, but it's fairly good coverage of the ordinary mundane issues. And when you take a look at the front page of the Star, or even you delve more deeply into the Star and you read some of the articles, and they're dealing with things like, oh my good, old age security ripoffs. Is the Science Center roof going to cave in here in Toronto? The Science Center roof it's going to pieces. They're making it's a Dundas Square. Its name is being changed. Wow, is that big news or what? So that's the kind of thing that people are confronted with all of the time, not just some of the time, all of the time. And no matter what radio station you listen to, what podcast you listen to, other than great ones like After Hours, these are few and far between. But no matter what else you listen to in the mainstream, and that's the key point here, most people pay attention to the mainstream. All you're getting is this cyclical bullshit every single day, and they just reframe every issue. They polish it up and present it as a new piece of information. They get a really good one is an MP. I don't know if he was a federal member or a provincial member. I think he was a provincial member. Um, one of the big issues here in our school system is whether or not we should be using cell phones with kids in school, allowing them to use them, and then also too, there was a study done by the Secretary General of in the United States about social media being infecting the minds of children and causing mental health issues, and that we have to have some sort of warning on social media so that children recognize that it could be dangerous to their mental health, just like they put warning on cigarette cases. Okay, that's what he's advocating. And this guy, the MPP, I forget his name, but he said no, that's not necessary. I really think that's not that's not the core of the problem. So meanwhile, children, and this is a borne out fact, children are being affected by social media to a point where their mental health is being compromised, to the point, and this is kind of a very strong statement to say, but this self-marking, okay, self-marking, cutting themselves, suicide, depression, anxiety, all being researched as the effects of social media. And that's a big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to point out is that kind of information, although it is really important. I mean, I can't tell you how important that kind of information is. But when you compare that kind of information with the fact that we're being visited by off-world civilizations, guess which one wins? Okay.
Right. Right.
And so they're framing those issues as being the front and center things that people got to pay attention to. So if you're at a dinner party and you don't know about a current issue, you're not really in the loop. You're considered ignorant if you don't know what's going on in the world in terms of current events. But if you're at that same dinner party and you bring up the fact that the president of the United States has begun to collect data on UFO information because the Senate is mandating that, you're branded as an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you see the comparison of what's going on? We're being fed information, and it seems to be the top of the line kind of information that you just got to know about. You got to know that our kids shouldn't have cell phones. You got to know that there are forest fires in BC. You got to know about this. You got to know about that. Yeah, we do. No doubt about it. We have to. We got to know that the polar bears are struggling. Okay, we got to know that baby seals are being pulled out of the water because the water's too warm. Okay, we have to know about that. But we also have to know that there is a presence here, and it's been going on for a long, long time, of visitors from other worlds. Now, I don't know about your listeners or you, or I know how to balance that. I know exactly how to approach that issue.
Right.
But most people really don't. They don't. They've been fed this information so consistently all of their lives. It's like, having breakfast at 9 o'clock and having lunch at noon and having dinner at 6. It's the same damn thing every day. And you get so used to it and you don't question it anymore. You don't question the validity of the crap that they're force feeding you. And then as soon as some other issue comes out, like back in 2017, when Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean and Helena Cooper wrote that article in the New York Times, that blew the lid off everything. And it captured the imagination of just about, a lot of people. Let's put it that way. It started in the New York Times. But then what happened after that, it just sort of, it falls off the cliff and just becomes another bit of information. It doesn't rise to the surface. And how can I put this? It doesn't rise to the surface to the point of being recognized as an issue. Okay. And then what are the implications of that information? All of the things that are implicate with respect to knowing that we're being visited by off-world civilizations. Okay. We're not the only ones in the cosmos. Number two, they're using energy sources that we have no idea about. Okay, they are taking our people, they're abducting our people, some with consent and some with no consent. All kinds of sociological, political implications that we're just not able to talk to because it just sinks off the edge of the table and it never gets discussed. Now, if that kind of information was discussed regularly, if that was the first item, think about this one. If that issue was the first item on CBC News every night for even 2 weeks, you tell me what the results would be.
Right.
First item. CTV News, Global News, CBC News. What if this issue was the first bit of stuff every night for 2 weeks? I just wonder what the effects would be.
Yeah,
And there's lots to talk about. There's lots to go on about, but it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, so it sounds like overburdening and over stuffing our plates like at a buffet. You really want to try that over there, but it's just full of this other stuff that you have to get through
Precisely.
so
Yeah,
you can get over there. So it makes
that's right.
that theory makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and
it really does. Yep.
we have to figure out another way to get it there. Like, we want the mainstream media to present this as the first story, like you say. And we have shows like these that we talk about this all the time, which, like you said, should probably be the premier thing that people see. Do you feel like, and I probably know the answer because I do feel like that the government or whoever these people are maybe shadow banning programs like these, or making sure that we, like, these programs don't get to a point to where they're able to overtake national media?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Yeah, that's a good term. I like that shadow banning. That shadow banning, I guess what you're saying. It's an interesting concept because it's kind of a conundrum in a lot of ways, because when you think of the pervasive effects or the pervasive presence of the internet and the way the internet is allowing us to interact about this information, because it gets so easy to do, because you type anything into a search bar and you get the answer to it like that right away. Doesn't matter what you want to know. What's the best way to grow tomatoes? Bang, and they'll give you the whole enchilada right away, and you can go out and plant your tomatoes. Done. Okay, success. So what we're doing here is there's a pipeline of information that's so easily accessible, and as soon as that information reaches a pinnacle of how can I say it, of a critical mass, let's put it that way, a critical mass, like what happened in 2017, or what happened with Nell, or what happened with Grush. Those are tidbits of information that are extremely important. They're a critical mass, like setting off an explosion of some kind. It happens on the internet, but it just won't happen on mainstream news. And why it doesn't? The only explanation that I can come up with, Rob, is the fact that in the control rooms, in the ownership of CBC, okay, which is the Canadian government, by the way, CTV and Global and all of that, there have to be people who are sitting in those rooms, the directors of the news programs, the ownership, whoever. They have to be sitting there saying, you know what, we're going to take a pass on this. When something big comes up, we'll put it on. I've been interviewed 3 times on global television, okay, twice on the national news and once on local news. And each time that I was interviewed, it was the last item on the show. What does that tell you? So you go through everything, and then the commentator, and by the way, we've got this interview about whatever, yada, 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 UFOs. So you can see the priority that they're giving that. So that sends an implicit message. UFOs are the last item on the newscast tonight, folks. So you know what? It's really not that big. So don't worry about it. And the publishers and the ownership and the directors of those media stations are, I think, in my opinion, are purposefully doing that. The producers are putting it to the very end, which sends a message to people. Well, it's just it's an off the cuff kind of issue that we can throw in as a filler towards the very end before we go and talk about, pancake syrup for a commercial, And so when you do that kind of thing consistently, when you put pancake syrup after a UFO item, it says something.
Yeah.
It says something. It tells you that, well, paper towels and pancake syrup are more important than this issue.
Yeah,
so it sends a silent message. I guess is what I'm saying, and it's a coordinated thing.
And some of them are still doing the ha ha ha, the giggle right before the telling of the story. Still,
yeah. That I think is getting a little bit better. Okay, a little bit better, but still, it's not where it should be. It's not where it's. if they were to get an issue like the UFO story and put it up front and talk about, well, how are these craft moving and what's the documentation and research done as to what kind of energy sources they might use and how will it eliminate fossil fuels? As soon as that issue comes up, you're going to have the fossil fuel industry all over the government, all over the agencies that are putting this stuff forward and saying, listen, we're putting gas in your car so you can get to work. So you better shut up, you know? And meanwhile, we're not going to even conceptualize the idea of experimenting with this free energy, or at least pursuing how these craft are propelling themselves. We're not even going to bother about that. And so that's the issues those are the issues that don't come up. The UFO issue comes up, say, well, there was a bright light in the sky and it did this, it did that, or this government passed that law, or whatever it happens to be, about relieving themselves of secrecy about UFO, but they never talk about the implications of it. They never talk about the fact that if we do in fact derive some of that energy sources from these craft retrieval, that we will eliminate fossil fuels to begin with and enter into a new age of travel, not just travel on the planet, the kind of travel that we can go to the stars with. We can become a star-faring civilization, and they won't ever talk about that on the news. Number one issue.
Bananas. That's bananas. It should for sure be the top story.
Well, can you imagine? We have a source of energy, ladies and gentlemen. We've just discovered it. We've not perfected it yet, but we're experimenting with it. That we think that if we can put these things into some sort of craft, we can move at or beyond light speed and move throughout the cosmos as freely as we move across a country. Now, how well do you think that's going to go over on CBC newscasts? It ain't gonna happen, folks. So there's those the implications are too big for media to deal with, and that's the big question. Okay, and then what would happen? Of course, it would be, well, you know what? These off-world civilizations are abducting our people. Well, yeah, they are. They are. Why?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think last time, I think what also proves that is just the overburdening of all these stories stacked on the person's plate is, if you remember during the whole pandemic period, when there wasn't a lot going on in the world, it shut down, then everyone's focus and attention was had, and that would have been the perfect time to kind of shove it down the throat of the people in the media. But when we have something like this, and so because every time someone like us within ufology, when we get one of those Carl Nell stories of Tim Gallaudet coming out, we're like, whoa, okay, this has gotta be it, this is it right here. And then it just fizzles out. What do you think going forward it's going to take to allow us to get over that hump? What do you think next?
Well, I think what has to happen is maybe we should back up a little bit and say, okay, how was it? Let's say in the year 2000, 24 years ago, what was the kind of information that was coming forward about this issue, and how was it managed? Okay, back 2000, 2001, it was. I don't know how it wasn't a priority. It was much less than a priority. Okay. And it didn't have the same large issues popping up every once in a while, like the Nell situation, like the Grush situation, like Chris Mellon's statement, To the Stars Academy. That kind of stuff wasn't happening 24 years ago. The only big thing that was really happening was stuff that Stephen Greer did with the Disclosure Project press conference. That was a biggie. Okay. And then 4 years later, Paul Hellyer comes forward. That was international news. So you got these little blips, but there weren't any real big blips until 2017. So the frequency of, if you've noticed it, when I said back up a little bit, the frequency of those blips have gone sort of like from this to that and that. They're getting big. The blips are getting bigger. 2017 was a big blip with that article in the New York Times. So what it's doing as those blips increase in intensity, it's capturing the imagination of a greater segment of the population. So if you compare any segment of the population right now, any segment, doesn't matter what it is, school teachers, doctors, lawyers, people on the street, whatever, and you bring the issue of UFOs up with them, I would guess 80 to 85%, maybe even 9. Oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah, I saw this guy Victor Viggiani on global TV talking about UFO. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I kind of know that. Back up to 2000, even before that, that wouldn't happen. It wasn't as pervasive then as it is now. So a greater segment of the population is becoming a little bit more informed, aware of, and their affinity to accept the information is growing. They're becoming more. It's becoming more believable to them. Okay, it's becoming more plausible to them. It's becoming more authentic, and I love that word. It's becoming something that's getting under their skin and going, what being visited by off-world civilizations, and they're oh, and you know what they're doing? They're hovering over missile installations and shutting our missiles down, and they're abducting our people. Interesting. So you get people asking those kinds of questions, and the questions are getting more intense and more driven by the size of the blips. So we are making progress, but it's going to take more of those blips, and those blips are going to have to be more compressed. They're going to have to happen more frequently.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is happening right now with the National Disclosure Act that they passed in the States, and with if the American public can eventually believe that the President of the United States will be handed a list of items of data that Lockheed Martin will have to, Raytheon will have to give the National Archives, that the United States Air Force will have to give to the National Archives, that the United States Navy will have, all this UFO stuff is going to land up on the desk of the President of the United States. And according to this act, he is going to have to nominate 9 people on a board to come up and ferret through this information and say, what do we keep classified and what can we release? Now, that would never have happened, 24 years ago. So those kind of strides are happening, but they're just not happening as quickly as people who are as impatient as I am. It's not happening as fast enough for us. So my level of patience growing thin, but generally speaking, in the general public, they're not quite as concerned about it. So what our job is to make people concerned about this stuff, make people understand that this information will affect everything that people do. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Everything from social media to phones to the cyclical war, what I call extinction behaviors. We can get into that if you want a little bit later. It'll affect our daily life. As soon as this stuff bursts onto the scene and people are sitting in audiences at the cinema, let's say, they go to Cineplex and they sit there and they watch, and instead of watching the damn movie, they're talking about this stuff. Or if they're on the TTC bus in Toronto, they're not talking about, the construction outside. They're talking about UFOs and what's going on. Why is this happening? Why isn't our government doing something about this? That's the level of acuity, and that's the level of discourse that we have to develop to have people talk about this stuff, and then have our elected representatives have enough balls to bring this stuff up and debate it in the floor of the House of Commons, just like it's being debated in the U.S. Senate. We don't do that. We haven't done that here in Canada. The U.S. Senate has. They've actually debated and voted on a UAP National Disclosure Act. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal. Not only is it a big deal, but the really difficult part is people in the United States don't know about that. They know that there's a logjam in Congress, that they don't get along and they can't agree on anything. But damn it all, they got Republicans and Democrats voting on this bill. It's bipartisan support. What more can you ask for from the Senate? They're actually getting together, talking about UFOs and developing language. In the National Disclosure Act, the term non-human intelligence is mentioned approximately 21 times.
Right.
Never happened before. I mean, that is absolutely astounding. Now, people need to know that. Right now, the common person in Tennessee or in Oklahoma or in Seattle, what? What's NHI? We got to push people along, more information, more, and that's where programs like this, the work that I do and the work that other people do, the Danny Sheens of the world and the Steve Bassett's and Richard Dole, we need to have more of those people out front talking about this stuff in a credible way to educate people so that they begin asking the right questions to their elected representatives, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about this, not just a few people. So I think that's how it's going to develop. And it's just that I think you brought up a really good point. What's stopping us? I think it's the level of impatience that some people have, or patience. Some people are really patient, really don't care about it that much. But there's a whole other a growing cadre of people who are extremely impatient about this, and that's growing, and it's also bleeding into the people who are becoming, who are indolent about this whole idea. So that one day, like I said at the beginning, and the waves they're gonna go over that wall or bust that wall down, and when that day comes, I think we'll know about it. I think we'll know about it in spades, because it'll just, and I'm not sure what's going to do. I'm not sure what's going to tip the balance. I'm not sure. Will it be a mass sighting? Will it be, another Luis Elizondo? Will it be a statement by the President of the United States saying something like this? I don't know what it'll be. It befuddles me as to exactly how that little drop of whatever it's going to be, to like nitroglycerin, all you can take out is a little bit to just make that explosion happen. I'm not sure what it'll be. But you can, you can really kind of be sure right now that those things are happening more and more often. What the big one will be, it's anybody's guess, Rob.
Yeah, that gives me hope. And it's only because some of the big things we were hoping would happen, maybe a new whistleblower or something along those lines, hasn't happened yet this year. But one thing I will say is that, and what you made me remember there is talking about the original Disclosure Project from 1997, or I think it was, and the the need for something else like that, like the citizens hearing, just some organized thing that has everyone's eye, just similar to the congressional hearings from last summer,
right?
But maybe done by the people. And a promising thing that I'm seeing, though, is that you have, like, obviously the Joe Rogans that put this on that platform up there. And then it kind of seems like some of the platforms that weren't doing it before are starting to occasionally speak about it.
Right.
And maybe we get, maybe we formulate some sort of organized movement between the top, the people at the top of the platform to organize some sort of unified reporting on this, like the next time a big thing comes up, and I'm just thinking of new ways, know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's going to require new ways of thinking. There's no doubt about that, Rob. It's going to require new ways of thinking at all levels. It's going to take that new ways of thinking at the managerial level of media. And I think that to me, I can't emphasize how important the mainstream media is, as full of blame as they are with respect to how they force news down our throats, and that's their business. I mean, all they're interested in is ratings. Okay, you come up with the biggest story, more people pay attention, and their revenues go up. That's all they could really care about. Okay. So if we go to the point where mainstream media gets the message that they've got to get into the UAP messaging game, then I think we'll be making a huge stride. And I'm beginning to see that, because when I get a call from Global News by one of the producers of Global National, to me that means something. I mean, when I got the call out of the blue, from a producer from the Global, and that's got to be at least the second or third highest ranked news show, mainstream media news show on television anyways. I mean, that's a big deal. That's in Canada. So there must be something going on there that's tweaking people's interest in those newsrooms, first of all, and at the managerial level, to have them push this stuff for, or at least create an environment in where it's okay to talk about it. Okay, so Donna Friesen, for example, who does the national news in the evenings and at night, when it becomes something that you could see she's passionate about when they report, then we'll know we're getting through to people like that. So there's going to have to be a different level of intellectual acuity at the managerial levels. Okay, folks, let's deal with this. Let's try this just for 2 or 3 days and get it out and see what happens. And once they see that once they begin raising the implications of it, not just the fact that the UFOs are real, that's done and gone. I mean, I think just about everybody realizes there's such a thing as UFOs and that we're not alone in the cosmos. Okay, but definite proof that it's going on and the technology exists and that they were capturing craft that have crashed. We have the materials, and we get into the substructure of the UFO issue. I'm not talking about the lights in the sky. I'm talking about the substructure. When people really get down into the weeds about this thing, then they're going to say to themselves, Martha, let's go watch TV tomorrow night. They're going to have more news about this UFO stuff. Come on, sit down, have a cup of tea before we go to bed. But when that starts happening, then we'll know we're making progress. And then when you go into a restaurant, Rob, and the table next door to you, you're next to you, sitting next to you, and you hear the two people talk. Did you hear what I was on the news last night about this alien creature that they found in Peru? I don't understand. Is it all bullshit or what? What do you think about that? When you get the discourse going, anything can happen after that.
And I'm actually glad you brought that up too, the peruse. We'll talk about some of that stuff in hour 2. And just to kind of, before we hit the break, I mean, when you say it like that, when you say you were reached out to, and so it had to be on that person's mind to say, hey, let me reach out and get someone to speak about this. Mm-hmm. Now, so with that perspective in mind, then maybe and hopefully some of those conversations within those circles in the media, we may just not be aware of. So I'll give them that. Maybe they're contemplating or going through these things in their mind, and we're just not aware as of yet because they haven't been acted on, and the behaviors may change. So we'll hold that out for hope.
Well, you're making a great point. Excellent point.
So what we'll do here, guys, we're going to go ahead and pause for the cause, get ready to jump into our first break of the night as we come back here with Victor Viggiani talking about more of what's going on in the world with UFOs, where we're at in our state of confirmation. So you guys don't go anywhere, and we will be right back.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Welcome back, everybody. Spaced Out Radio After Hours #2 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G, and our guest tonight, Victor Viggiani. As we go ahead, right before we get back into the conversation, space travelers, you're already a space traveler. Consider taking the next step and joining the club. That's right. You can join a Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 by joining our Patreon. Consider doing that. We would love to have you show your love and support for Spaced Out Radio. So as we go ahead and get back into the conversation here, Victor, so just a couple things. So the Harvard study had come out, and they're pretty much theorizing aliens are actually here walking among us.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of talk about that, but then also with that, the Nazca mummies are actually back in the news again, right? A lot of people wrote them off initially, and apparently they've done some study and some research on these things, and they're figuring out that they might actually, it might be real. I don't know. What do you think about that? Have you heard about that? What's your view on it?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I know about it because I one of the organizations that I belong to, Rob, is called ICER, the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research. And it is a group, it's a worldwide international group. We have representation from over 30 countries. And we just had an annual general meeting last week. And one of our members is from Peru. And he was at the initial press conference where they released these things that way back whenever it was. And I must say before I go on that this is not an area of my expertise. Okay, so if I'll talk in generalities about it and its significance, but in terms of the specifics, I really don't have a whole lot to contribute that way. In any case, what I'm saying is that he is confident with the number of researchers that he's spoken with, several of them who are close research colleagues of him. They are convinced that the DNA material, once it's verified, it will be verified that these are in fact non-human. Okay, he's more than confident in that. Now, what will happen because of that? It's anybody's guess. It'll have to come out in such a way. Now, the Harvard University didn't really say anything definitive about the whole thing. What they did say is the possibilities of. That's their mantra, and that's a kind of a cute or convenient out for them without saying, well, this stuff is real. Okay, and I think the people at Harvard University are fearful of coming out and saying, yes, this stuff is authentic, and we believe more research needs to be done, not only to prove its authenticity, but to get this information out and say definitively that we have in fact found creatures of non-human origin that have been here for thousands of years, which means that they've been here a long, long time, and the people that are here now are in some way related to what we've had here on the planet for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years, if not longer. When Harvard University will come out and say that definitively, then we'll get someplace. But right now they're hedging their bets and they're not really saying anything specific. So it's like a good UFO sighting. It's all of a sudden it comes out. Oh, I saw this huge triangle and it was the size of 2 football fields, and it's the same sort of thing. Once people get the sense that this is authentic information, okay, that's the first step. The next step, as I mentioned earlier, is what are the implications of that? What does it mean that we found creatures on the planet that are non-human? What does that mean? And you could go 6 ways to Sunday as to what it actually means. All kinds of implications. We could be sharing DNA with them. And what does that mean? Okay, and all of the things that we take for granted will be influenced by that kind of information. So I think that's where we're going. That's where we're heading. And you can only have a certain amount of information where you absorb the information to begin with, and the average person analyzes it and then either dismisses it or takes it in as real. Okay, or just goes on with their day and just I don't care anymore. It's not important to me. Okay, so those three corners of the table have to be taken into consideration as to how this information is brought forward. It's going to be very, very important that if this stuff is in fact as real as I think it is, if it's brought forward in the right way and the right number of institutions get on board and do this along with the mainstream media, then we'll get someplace. But we can't have these big organizations speculating and say, well, maybe this is a possibility that's that, much like the Pentagon is doing. They've admitted the UFOs are in the air, but we have no definitive information as to where they're from or who's created them. We just don't know. That's not good enough. NASA's doing that all the time. They're there, but we just don't know what they are. There's no explanation. Well, go the next step and find out, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening with these bodies is they're taking the body issue and moving it forward. And it could be, as I mentioned earlier in the program, we need that. What will be that one thing that will, in fact, come forward and tip the scales in our favor of getting this information out, so that people aren't just talking about UFOs; they're talking about the fact that these beings could be walking among us. And I believe that for years. It's been something that. That I've known about, because I spoke to someone from Trenton Air Force Base, had to be about 35 years ago, believe it or not. And that person actually was invited to sit down in a restaurant by a non-human being.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you put that with what Carl Nell said, they're walking among us, and then, yeah, obviously, okay, that's a thing that we definitely need to look at. And here's the thing, a lot of people, and this is one of the problems that I have, and I've said this before, is that regardless on how wild the information sounds when someone brings something forward, I think, period, the wrong thing to do is just to immediately dismiss it as being nothing. And we should take the time, vet it. And when Musan came out with these mummies, I said, okay, I felt the same way a lot of people did. Maybe there's nothing to it. But I also said that we should at least let these scientists go ahead and check out the DNA or whatever test they need to run to validate whether it's something or not. Maybe it's nothing. Okay, we throw it out. But maybe it's something, and then we move forward with what it is. But I think a lot of people have moved on from the Nazca mummies because they initially dismissed it. But I saw something that there was our good friend Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show had a guest on, a doctor who was kind of talking about some of the new findings. And there was something that he brought up that kind of blew my mind. And I guess they had tested the one that was pregnant, the mummy that was pregnant. They sent a probe or poked into one of the eggs and were able to kind of map the fetus on the inside of the egg. And the fetus itself in the egg had 3 toes, which was kind of mind-blowing. And there were a lot of other things that they looked at as far as how the bones were joined at the joints, and that was actually natural, and that the cranium had been examined, and it was like 30% human or something. So they kind of came to the conclusion that it was like a humanoid reptile. And I'm just like, boom, okay, I'm blown. But the conversation is continuing there, which I think a lot of people threw it out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Which is silly. And I think that's one of the things that kind of draws us back or keeps us from getting to the place we want to go.
Yeah. You're right in mentioning the fact that when you're hit with information that does not necessarily corroborate with your current belief system, okay? So if you have a belief system, let's take the average person. If you have a belief system that says, no, we're alone in the universe, and we're the only ones here, and we're the top of the cosmic heap. There's nobody in the cosmos any more intelligent than us. If that's your belief system, if that's your worldview, and then you're presented with information like you just described, your first reaction is, oh, no, it's not possible. You just dismiss it. You just outright, because that's Your worldview controls how you receive information, how you process that information, and what you do with that information. And people at that level of I don't know what to call it, but lack of awareness, for lack of a better word, they will automatically dismiss it. Okay, and that's what's happened over the decades. Now more is happening because things are coming forward more consistently than they were before. So you're getting that average person is moving towards a belief system that, well, yeah, maybe that is possible. And then the next piece of information comes forward. Oh, so it's solidifying their newfound information, and it's putting away, it's dispensing with the old paradigm worldview that they have. So the old worldviews are gradually becoming dysfunctional, and they're gradually becoming less and less prevalent in society. And you can see that with everything. I mean, it just seems like when you believe in a certain thing, like climate change isn't happening, and then you see what's going on, there's a significant portion of the population who are believing that it is in fact real. So what's the key here? The key is more information. The more credible information we can present to people on a consistent basis from credible sources, the more that worldview will change. So I think, in answer to your question, that's the key thing that's got to change. We have to move our worldview from this authoritarian way of thinking that might is right, and the more missiles that you can throw at somebody means you can control that country. Okay, that kind of thinking, that's being displaced more and more frequently. Although the current war in Ukraine won't attest to that fact. But the world, what I'm saying is, worldviews are being in fact changing, and I think it's important that we keep that up. More information and how we process that information is going to be key to how it all comes out. And the people in the newsrooms and the producers and at the ownership level of media, they're changing too. They're also the ones that are gradually changing, and getting to the point where they're talking to people like Lou Elizondo. They're talking to Chris Mellon now, and that's the big issue.
Exactly. And just kind of going over this, I mean, it's still kind of
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
I was looking at they were explaining the white powder substance and why that is, and this is the diatoms that look like this on the left. This is how they look on the right once they're dead, and it actually appears as like a white powder form, but it's actually the shells of these once alive diatoms. So I thought that part was interesting. What else did I have here? Yeah, the one okay, yeah, and this here they said this. I guess this is what you would normally see if they were trying to assemble something. They would have these sort of mechanisms in place to mend the bones or bring the bones together. They didn't get any of that in the CT scans. And it's just very interesting. Like I said, the egg thing is kind of what is really, standing out to me right now. They went in and looked at what was supposed to be the fetus, and the developing fetus was developing with also 3 toes. I don't know how you manufacture something like that. It doesn't seem to be something that's possible. They dated back the bodies, I guess, back to about 250 AD. So, I mean, there's still a lot of moving parts there. But just like I said a year ago, when everybody was debunking it, even though I was on the fence, I still said, hey, let's see what happens. Let people look at it. Let them test it. And then maybe it's nothing, but maybe we've discovered something,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because one of your listeners or viewers right now, Sierra, I believe, he or she, I'm not sure, she's asked the question, why aren't the findings from the data published in current scientific journals? That is going to be a key point in having the scientific community recognize what's going on with these bodies. Because for Harvard University to come out and talk about this the way they did, the way you alluded to earlier, and that there's all this information about the Peruvian bodies, Once that stuff starts to sift into the scientific community, into the journals, that's when mainstream media will pick up on it. So these things are all interconnected. What they do is they produce what I call converging lines of evidence, so that you don't just have one bit of information pointing to the authenticity of a fact. What you have is a whole bunch of other converging lines pointing to the same thing. And the more evidence you have converging on that central point of information, the more credibility it has, and the more that political and scientific and social institutions will take it upon themselves to promote those ideas and go back, like I said earlier in the program, in changing worldviews. Because if the scientific community, like whoever's examining these things, and the young lady Sierra saying, why doesn't it get into the journals? Once those kinds of constituencies, once the scientific community grabs a hold of this issue and says, yes, like you just said, yeah, there's something to this, and for us to ignore it would be academically irresponsible. And we have to examine this. We just can't fluff it off. Once those kinds of things start happening, we're going to see, I think, this issue. This could be the whole barnstorm here. This could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I just don't know enough about it to really convince myself that that I understand all the information, and B, how the information will be propagated into the media and into the scientific journals in order to create that new belief system that's required to say, okay, we believe you now. Let's get on with it. What more do you have to tell us? Okay, so Pentagon, shut up. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. You're get on board, or quiet down. You have to. So there's words in a song. Get on the boat and start to row. That kind of thing.
Now,
that's what's got to happen.
This is funny too. So Simon Likeable says, "Space Out Radio. If they were real, why haven't the USA confiscated them things?" I mean, normally that's what would happen. I don't know. I can't really answer why they haven't confiscated them, but this story has legs because if it was what everyone thought it was, just a complete fake thing, this thing would not be still in the news today.
That's right.
They would have immediately discovered what it was, and this would be nothing more to it.
That's right.
There's so much more going into the research and what's going on that there's definitely something there's more than what you thought.
It's got traction. It's got traction.
I don't know if the USA takes them later. It's still open for debate. If they discover these things are real, maybe the USA steps in and confiscates them then. But yeah,
wouldn't that be something? Yeah.
They definitely have their eye on it. I'm pretty sure of that. But I just thought that was interesting. I want to bring that up because that's something that's currently being talked about now, and just it's just another lesson to people within ufology who you would think would be the most open-minded and allow this to play out are the main debunkers when it comes down to stuff like this, and it's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've been around this now for 45 years, Rob, and I started being interested back in 1975. And after I got into it, after I'd say probably 8 or 10 years, I got to realize exactly what you just said. That at the time, I'm talking now within the, in the 1980s and even into the 90s, I found out that the UFO research community was its own worst enemy. And the number of things that would come up, even just simple sighting things, were debunked right away. These researchers would just jump all over it for whatever reason. And no, that it's not true because of X, Y, and Z. And it was always the same people. You have to wonder, are they being, skeptical in the right way, and not saying, let's accept everything. Yeah, there's that possibility. But the automatic response of people who want to debunk this right away is, I think, evidence of their limited worldview, because they don't want things to change. The debunkers do not want things to change. The power structures in the Pentagon and the Defense Department and the FBI and the CIA, they don't want the power structures to change. And when we do begin to move this kind of information underneath and above the power structures and encapsulate them in the truth of what's really going on and have them admit to what's really going on, the less power they have. And that's it's all about power and money. It comes down to that all the time. So if we were to admit at any time in the future, near future, or whatever, that we are in fact being visited by off-world civilizations, and there's nothing we can do about it. Their craft are impermeable. We can't fire upon them and destroy them. We don't have the defenses to do that. What does that do to the power structure on the planet? That's one of the biggest questions. I mean, we could talk about the mummies' bodies that to the cows come home, and I'm not saying it's not important. But what it does do is, if this stuff that you're presenting here on the screen right now is in fact true, it leads to other implications about who we are, who's with us. And it all goes back to, when this information does come out, who wins and who loses. Okay?
Right.
Who wins and who, and then you can be damn sure that the Pentagon is not in the business of losing.
Right.
They're not. And so are the power structures in the world. And the other thing that's happening here, which is really interesting, that I think your listeners should really think about closely, when you talk about this information, with respect to the bodies and to the old UAP issue itself and the energy issue, there are competing forces internationally as to who is going to perfect this energy first, and will it be weaponized? That's the big fear here. Okay. Can you imagine if somehow China figures out, which is a definite possibility, that they've got crash material, they may have all kinds of things in their laboratories that are provably workable in an experimental way, and that they could perfect these technologies to a point where they can create weapons. How will that disturb the balance of power on the planet? That's going to have amazing implications about it, all this information. So, like I said, it's all about power and money, and who wants to retain it. And it's not in the Pentagon's interest to let this information out. And I can see why they don't, because that might disturb the power structures. So it's a very difficult concept to really understand as to why they're keeping it secret. They're keeping it secret because they don't want other countries to know about it, unless they probably do anyways. But they don't want to have their power structures interrupted to displace the balance of power with nuclear weapons. They don't want that to end. They want to be, top of the heap.
Yeah. And I'm a big person on, I like to also tell people that, this is the reason why you don't throw it away. Is so you parking lot it along with everything else, and then you refer back to it. So now we start putting pieces together. So we have, we had David Grush come out and say these things are real. We have programs. You have Gallaudet coming out saying, hey, not only that, but we are actually in the government's in direct contact. Then you have a Carl Nell saying, yeah, they're here. We're in contact with them. Then you have the Harvard study says not only are they here, but they're walking amongst us. And then you have the alien mummy story coming back out saying, hey, these things might be real. You kind of got to put those things together. So, with all that stuff being out there, you get, this is the other thing I wanted to bring up, because, lately or recently, I'll say, we had Sean Kirkpatrick come out and speak with Stephen Greenstreet over at the New York Post. And, he got caught in a lie, essentially. He got caught in a lie.
Certainly did. Yep. He certainly did.
And said that he had no dealings with UFOs prior to 2022. And it was brought out, Brandon Fugel said, no, actually, he was in a meeting with us in 2018 as we briefed them regarding Skinwalker Ranch. The pictures came out, everything came out. And how do you feel about that? I mean, because what I think is what we saw there is we saw an example of the disinformation campaign the U.S. government was putting on, and then they got busted, caught red-handed. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, it shows the crack in the wall of secrecy is what it does. It's always been my impression that there's been this wall of secrecy that's been built around the whole issue of UFOs, okay, and the extraterrestrial presence, and that wall is being dismantled one brick at a time, and occasionally it's more than one brick at a time. So the secrecy angle to all of this will be proven very, very clearly by liars like Sean Kirkpatrick. Okay, he's basically a liar, and I would not have any problem saying that directly to his face. When he was at the congressional hearing that he testified at, he was bald faced lying about everything. He knows this stuff is real. He knows that the Pentagon has information, but he's been put forward as someone who has to tell the lies, and he's paid the price for it because his lies have been found out, and he's no longer in charge of that organization. And some other dummy is taking his place to perpetuate the lies again. So this kind of thing is so contradictory to what you just mentioned when you said all this information is coming forward. It's like those converging lines of evidence that I mentioned earlier in the program. You articulated all those converging lines of evidence very, very well a few minutes ago. And when you get that number and that quality of lines of information coming forward, people like Sean Kirkpatrick, they can't say anything about that. There's no way that Sean Kirkpatrick could come out and say anything about the bodies. No way, because he doesn't know enough about it. And even if he does, he'd be afraid to say it anyways. So because his leash is very short and it's very tight around his neck, and he's just going to fade out just like Philip Klass did. Okay.
Right.
That's what's going to happen to people like that. And I have absolutely no sympathy for the man at all. And if he has 1 ounce of integrity, he would sit down and either in a skiff session or in public and say, okay, folks, you know what? I've been told not to say anything about it, and I'm coming forward, just like Grush did. Okay. And it's got to be time for someone like that to do. And once he does that, that's another converging lines of evidence, that converging line of evidence that's going to, crack the wall of secrecy.
Yeah. And it was beautiful because he didn't get caught in a lie in real time. This Brandon Fugel actually did that interview with the basement office a year ago. And here's the thing: a year ago, when that interview came out, and he said that Brandon Fugel said 2018. Me personally, I immediately jumped on that and was like, "Oh, okay, well, he's lying then." No one in the media or anyone said anything about that for an entire year until this interview came out, and it was like, oh, well, he lied. Well, yeah, you should. If anyone was paying attention, you would have known that a year ago. Well, we knew all along, but it was confirmed a year ago. So, I used to ask myself, well, is he lying on purpose? Is he because he wants to? Is he being told to lie, or is he just being naive and doesn't understand that he's telling a lie? And the fact that because he's still doing this after he leaves this position lets me know that strings are definitely being pulled there. And it's just like it's been more of the government just showing that because this slipped. They're showing that they don't really care if we know or not. They don't care if we know that they are running a misinformation campaign.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now, another thing that he's doing, and this is one thing, in the talks that he's had since he's left office, he has said some things that really I felt like were dangerous statements to make. Now, he said, and I know I have it here, he said this: it's almost like a religion, is basically a religion. He said this in January of this year in the interview. Now, he also went a step further, and hopefully I have that on here. How can we trust someone in national secrets? He said, oh, I have it here. He basically said that we are a threat against national security. That I know I have it here. He basically said because we are religious, because he considered this a religion, that essentially ufology is a threat against national security, and I think that's dangerous talk. What do you think about that?
Well, he's got to say something. Okay, he's got to say something that's going to appeal to a larger contingency of people. He has to say something where he can appeal to the people who think they know this information has to be kept quiet. Okay, so once he says that kind of thing, it solidifies his position and theirs. And for him to brand ufology or whatever the research into UFOs as a religion, I mean, that is the most bona fide, ridiculous statement I've ever heard by anyone with a PhD or any kind of scientific background. It is just ridiculous for someone to do that, and he's saying that because the connotations of linking ufology with a religion, then you move into this whole idea of a cult. Okay, and that's where they're going with this.
Yes.
Okay, that's where they're going with this. So it's to their advantage to find any way possible, and I'm talking any way possible, to discredit anything that moves us closer to the understanding that we are in fact in the midst of an extraterrestrial presence. And they're this far, as far as I'm concerned, they're this far away from completely admitting that. And how it comes out is going to be the real substantive mode of understanding for people. That they will be able to admit that we're not alone in the universe. They'll be able to admit that we're being visited, but they'll couch it in ways that'll still maintain this whole national security mantra that they've been talking about for the past 80 years. They won't let that go. And it'll be interesting to see how they gradually capitulate to the point where they admit that we are in fact being engaged by off-world civilizations. I'm so enthusiastic about how they're going to frame that issue, because they're going to frame it in their own interest. They're not going to frame it and say, "Oh, folks, you know what? We've got a federation of extraterrestrials that they're out there, they're visiting us, and they've got." They're not going to say it that way. They're going to frame it in such a way that doubt will always remain, and that their power structures will remain intact. They will not let go of the reins of power. So they'll admit this in a way that's part of their duplicity. That's part of the way the United States government and most other, powerful nations operate. They want to retain their power. They will not let go of it. So they have to frame this issue so that they get it out, but still retain their power. And how will they go about doing that? That'll be the conundrum that they're going to face. And they're going to have to get people like Kirkpatrick out of the way very, very quickly.
Yeah, and you're saying exactly what I say all the time. That's a true fact. Now, I want to say this because I had it written down, so I can tell you exactly what was said. So this statement, obviously, it's almost like a religion. It's basically a religion. He also said with Green Street that decisions are being made not based on data or evidence, but on fervent religious conviction. So he said that, and then he went a step further to say that he states that UFO true believers are a threat to national security. And that is exactly what you said, that point that frames this as like a religious sort of cult, and that we are radicals essentially, and that we should be on the same list as some of these militias, these anti-government militias. And that's the fine line, because you speak about humanity and trying to get the message and enlighten humanity. There's a fine line, because the government is the one suppressing, so they immediately want to point at us and call us anti-government, which is not the fact. We're just pro-humanity. But it's dangerous when they play with that, because once we're labeled that and we're targeted, then that's when they have the open ability and authority to go after ufology, right?
Exactly.
And we can't have that.
Well, you make a good point, because the last thing governments like the United States of America, and I'm talking about the deep state government who control this issue, the last thing they want is an enlightened citizenry. They don't want smart people voting for them. If they wanted to really educate the public about everything that's really going on the planet, they would be out there in spades talking about CO2 in the air, and we're doing this and we're doing that, we're developing this, and we have access to new energy sources. And let's build a coalition so we, stop the plastics from entering our ecosystem to the point where, we're poisoning the oceans. That's the kind of rhetoric that we would be hearing from the government. But we're not. We're hearing it from environmental groups, but we're not necessarily hearing it from the government. So the government does not want an enlightened citizenry. They don't want smart people kind of voting for them. What they want to do is dumb down the population to a point where they do exactly what you just said. Okay. And so that's the key point in this. And I, this is about the fourth time I've said it, but I'll say it again, that they do not want to relinquish their authority and power. They want to retain their authoritarian, and I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, they do not want to dismantle the power structure that keeps them where they are, because they need that balance of power.
Yeah, and here's the other part of that. He was doubling down, making it stating that balloons, or doubling down on balloons and drones as being evidence is what we are seeing in the sky. So it just showed, I mean, he was doing the active disinformation thing. He also said the best thing that could have happened never did. The best thing that could have happened in this job is I found aliens and I could have rolled them out, but there is no evidence of extraterrestrials. There is no evidence of aliens, and no evidence of the government conspiracy. Where do you go with that? Where do you go?
Either he's bald-faced lying or he has no idea what he's talking about. The man is sleepwalking. He's basically sleepwalking through his job. And in a way, I said earlier that I don't have any sympathy for him. In one way I do, because he's being put up as a bit of a martyr. He has to do what he's doing, and he's probably being paid very well to do it. Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to be the front man to the lies. And he mistakenly got appointed to this Arrow group as a fictitious group of people who are going to really examine things, investigate more. Well, you can only have investigations go so far before you say to yourself, oh my goodness, our investigation is exactly proving what we don't want it to prove. That's where he's at. That's what he's saying, that we've got information about that and we just don't want to get it out because it'll prove what the ufology people have been saying for 80 years. So, I mean, he has to speak the way he speaks. He has to create. Here's the key thing. He has to keep creating this lexicon, this language, this way of thinking that can justify his own lies and the position the Pentagon is taking. Okay, he has to keep on saying that. If he relinquishes or changes that lexicon one little bit, then he'll be a failure. Yeah. And he'll prove to himself and everybody else that he's not up to the job. He's not investigating any of this. And if he is investigating it, he's coming to the point where he does see the validity of the information, but he's just too simple-minded and his leash is too short and his collar is too tight to say anything. That's the bottom line here.
So with that being said, I mean, you talked about, your term, you said the converging lines, as we spoke about earlier, right? Painting this full picture for us and for the world as well on what is going on and what we're really dealing with. Then you have the example of the active government misinformation campaign that they got caught red-handed in. Now, I want to jump into what you mentioned earlier, which is extinction behavior. What exactly do you mean when you say that?
Well, it's a thing. It's a thing, okay, and it's a set of behaviors that are gradually moving us towards becoming an extinct species, okay. And what I mean by that is that the number one, and I've got it, I've done presentations on this. The first one is the idea of the cyclical war economy, okay? And if you think about even as far back as Napoleon and even further back, wars are endemic to the human species, okay? When wars were prevalent back 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago among tribes, it didn't really threaten the human race. Okay, it threatened, a local tribe or whatever. It didn't affect the whole planet. But as we moved forward and war became more sophisticated, war has become a behavior that will, if it's propelled in the way that it's continuing to move forward in its sophistication, it will in fact extinct us as a species. And I'm talking about a nuclear holocaust here, okay? And if it doesn't extinct us, it's going to eradicate a huge portion of the population, and we'll never be the same again with the radiation or whatever else will come from it, with the planetary changes. So it's a form of just extincting ourselves, okay? So that's the number one. The other part of the extinction behavior is this idea of borders. And if you think about it for a second, what is a border? It's a way of separating people from one another. Okay, and that is the key in any kind of mutual understanding among us as a species. Okay. And what borders do is they create a situation where this cyclical war economy can perpetuate itself. So the more weapons you can make and the more things that you can throw at another country inside their borders, the more powerful you are. Right. Which goes back to my point earlier. And power is the thing you want. And borders increase that kind of behavior, so that it will be a point in time where some country like China, and they're number one on my list, not Russia. They're basically bankrupt anyways. But a power like China could eventually determine the fate of the planet because of the insanity that's going on inside that country in terms of the control they have of their population, the kind of secrecy that they employ, and they are insidious in infecting the international technological, ability to corrupt information in other countries. So it's not just a war of throwing bombs at one another. You've got technology that will get into systems. It'll get into the health system. It'll get into the defense system. It'll get into the economic system to destroy a country. Technology will destroy just like a bomb will. So that the whole idea of borders insulates countries so they feel they can do whatever they want. If they've got enough power and influence within their own country and they want to export that power and force it on another country that's not in their own borders, they'll do it. So what's the cause of it? Borders are the cause of the kinds of extinction behaviors we're seeing right now. That's number two. And the other extinction behaviors are things like climate. This whole pumping fossil fuels into anything that moves. Okay. And thinking that fossil fuels is the way that we produce plastic, is the way we produce energy, and is the way that will just continue to perpetuate this whole power structure that we see, the money exchanges, the whole fossil fuel economy. That's the way that power structure operates. So in fact, by pumping more and more fossil fuels into the air, I mean, what's the consequence of that? It's obvious. It's quite obvious. So that is another extinction behavior. Now, and here's another good example of what's happening. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, and anybody can do the research on this. But what's happening in the amount of plastics in the ocean, they're becoming so minute that they're becoming smaller than a grain of sand. And they will not disintegrate. And what's happening is certain kinds of fish. You ready for this? Certain kinds of fish are ingesting this plastic, in its microbial form, and the ingestion of this plastic consistently within the species of fish is changing their sex. So males are becoming females, and females are becoming males.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about that on a global scale and the amount of plastics that we use on a daily basis. It may sound like an insignificant thing. Fish are changing their sexuality.
No, but
in the long term, exactly.
We eat the fish and then we ingest the plastics and just so on and so forth.
It just keeps on rolling.
You're right, but here's so with that being said, and I agree, and those behaviors need to change, and that's technically why I think we need like catastrophic disclosure, because I think only something like that or the nuclear events or an asteroid impact, like we talked about, would be the thing that would allow us to make the change.
Yeah, scare the shit out of us.
I would prefer for it to be the disclosure part and not the other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. Now, with that being said, because we have a few minutes left here, I do want to have you heard about Lou Elizondo's new book coming out? What are you anticipating, and what are you expecting from it?
Well, I've already ordered my copy. Imminent, it's called. You can pre-order a copy of it if you wish. I'm anticipating. Well, let me back up a bit. It was before COVID. Okay, so we're talking 2019, 20, maybe. Yeah. I interviewed Lou on a podcast that we had at the time. So we brought Lou in, and much like this, there's 4 or 5 of us doing the interview, not just myself. And he was very open with us. He was very cooperative and very open-minded. And he said, at the right time, and he said this very vividly, at the right time, this information is going to come out, and I will be one of the people that will be responsible for this information coming out. And I think he was leading up to what to the book that he's written. I think it's going to be a compilation of his entire experience at the Pentagon, number one, and the information that he's gleaned over that period of time. And it very well could be a substantial sea change, much like David Grush, much like Carl Nell, but to a degree of an insider who's had a very, very close and intimate relationship with people in the Pentagon, where he ran that program for 5 years. He didn't stick around in that program doing nothing. He wasn't a paper, and he made it very clear. At that point, from 2007 to 2012, when this thing ran, he wasn't a paper pusher. He was up to his eyebrows in this information and trying to corral it to a point where it made sense, because they were given $22 million by Harry Reid, and they had to make sense. And as soon as that information began to make too much sense, that's when they got him out. Okay, and they knew it, and he knew it, and they started to butt heads, and so he resigned because he wanted to get this information out. And it was something that I've always believed, that within the Pentagon, there are factions within the Pentagon who really want to get this stuff out. It's, clear the air and get it out in some form of either, a limited disclosure or some sort of admission that, we are pursuing this issue. And then there's another faction who want to retain the power structures that they have, and those forces. And I think in that book, Lou just might describe that system in a more open and demonstrative way. I think that's where he'll go. He'll show the Pentagon for what it is. It's a corrupt organization, and that it's the threat to national security and not the UFO community. So, I think it'll be a definitive work. I really, really feel that.
Wow. Okay. Yep. My hope, and I'm definitely getting the book as well. My hope is, in a perfect world, that this is how it goes. So the book is like everything you just stated, but I'm hoping, and I hope with Grush as well, and I think it possibly could be true, that I just feel like when they both came out, I just for some reason feel like they didn't lay everything on the table. I think they kept something. I think they kept some information. I think Grush still has some things to say that we haven't heard. I think Lou Elizondo as well. So I think the book might represent everything you just said, plus some of the things that he held, because he knew he was going to do a book. And this is really what I hope. I hope that along with this book, he has set up some sort of movie deal or a documentary where this can be translated into a movie, because that would be, if all the information is pertinent, then it in movie form would obviously be something that would sweep all over the globe more than a book would, and potentially get that word out there. So if you're listening, Lou, think about inking that movie deal and getting this book turned into a movie, because I think that could help this disclosure movement.
Well, you know what you should do is get James Fox on.
There you go.
There you go.
Glad you brought him up, actually, because
It's.
What do you know about his new documentary? Have you heard anything about
No,
it?
I haven't.
'Cause
No,
I'm waiting on that.
yeah, he's kind of holding back on that. We exchange, correspondence on Facebook and emails, and I throw him stuff, he throws me stuff, and he's interested in what I'm doing up here in Canada. But I think that he's got bigger fish to fry. And if I just threw that out as a suggestion when you said movie, he was the first person that I thought of that might want to grab onto whatever Lou's trying to do. Yeah, but I think the other part of what that interview that I did with Lou, I asked him a question that kind of caught him off guard, and I said, Lou, just pretend for a second you've got a box on a table, and you've got the box, and you it's called the disclosure box, okay?
Mhm.
And you've got all this information all over the place, okay, wherever it might be on show, and you want to disclose stuff. What are you going to put in that box to disclose, and what are you going to make sure doesn't get into that box? And so he said, Victor, I've never been asked a question like that before. And he didn't really answer the question. He said, well, there are a lot of classified stuff. He went on with that kind of whole, well, some's got to remain classified and some we got to release. So he played the card in that way. So he really didn't, and I didn't challenge him. Like I understand why he answered the question in the way that he did. But I thought it was kind of very instructive that he had to make a decision about in his own mind about thinking about what he'd put in the box and what he'd leave out.
Yeah.
And that could be, I think, the box now that he's written, that book could be the box. It could be the whole enchilada. Here's everything, boys and girls. It could be. It very well could be.
And the other thing is we have Lou, and then we have the James Fox, which I know will make an impact, whatever. And it's about Jason Sands, obviously, and others. So that should be some sort of make an impact. Also, the guy I interviewed before, Luigi Venditelli, who's doing the Bob Lazar film.
You're right.
That should be out obviously pretty soon too. So maybe things pick up. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll have to get back together so we can discuss all that stuff, Victor, sometime here in the near future. SOR is taking a break for like 2 or 3 weeks in July, and then we're coming back in August.
Good.
So let's set something up for like August, September, and kind of talk
by
again.
all means.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to suggest that I'm sure some of your listeners, and you for sure, have heard of the New Paradigm Institute and the work that Danny Sheen and Jim Garrison are doing. If you can, when this stuff starts to kind of start rolling, because they're doing a lot of great work, I think Danny or Jim, both of them would be great guests coming forward, because they're doing some amazing work within the government structures to advise them. They're actually in close communication with Chuck Schumer's office. So they're doing some great work, and I would encourage people to go to the New Paradigm Institute website and sign up for the newsletter, because Danny sends out a weekly and sometimes twice a week weekly newsletter just outlining the work that they're doing and some of the great news that's coming down the pipe through the New Paradigm Institute. So in addition to that, visit my website, ZlandCommunications, because I cover all that stuff, and it's all there in editorial form and in press releases. So if you want to find out what's going on, Zland Communications is the place to go as far as Canadian news is concerned and a Canadian perspective.
That is awesome. You went right into it and handled it. And I'm going to definitely reach out to Danny Sheen. If you have an inside note on him, definitely put in a word and maybe bring him on with you. And we'll just have that discussion in September. Well, Victor, I do appreciate you coming in. It's been an awesome talk. Definitely is just like it was last time. Definitely want to thank you for coming. You have a great rest of your night. Have a great week. And I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure joining you.
All right, Victor. Take care.
Bye now.
Later. All right, guys. Victor Viggiani. Awesome guy, man. It's always, if you remember last time we had him on, it was awesome as well. So if you missed that conversation, definitely go back and check that. It is in our archive, youtube.com/spaced out radio. We have conversations to move the needle here. That's just what we do. So it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people want to hear stories. Sometimes we got to have just more than stories. We have to have conversations that move the needle. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get ready to jump into hour 3 right here on Spaced Out Radio. You guys don't go anywhere because I think we might have a Travis Moose-Do sighting. Not really sure, but I'm pretty sure. So we'll see you in a minute.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Yes. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3. We're already hour number 3. With me, your host, Mr. Rob G, as we go ahead and get back into it and get to going into what we're doing for hour number 3. As you see on the screen, we'll be joined shortly by our man with the paranormal news, Mr. Travis McFee. But first, definitely want to talk about the swag shop. SOR swag, go get it. We don't have ugly swag. spacedoutradio.com/shop. Make sure you guys go there. And then when you're done, when you get the swag, put it on, take a picture, go back to spacedoutradio.com, click on where it says SOR Fan Zone. Go ahead, fill out your name, the information, upload your photo, submit, and then we will add that photo to the Spaced Out Radio website. You can be on the Spaced Out Radio website. Wouldn't that be awesome? So make sure you go ahead and do that. Now, before we jump into our guy, Travis McFee, I want to address this right here. Here I am asking at Spaced Out Radio, why the 2 to 3 week break in July? People asking. Dave mentioned last week on the show, and also I was on the show as well. Spaced Out Radio will be taking a break. So for those who may not have known this, we're going to be off air, right? So no Spaced Out Radio beginning on July 20th. And then last show date will be Friday, July 19th. And then we will be taking a break from the 20th of July until August 4th. So the first show back will be the 5th. But as Dave said, it may be a little longer if we need to do that. So what we will be doing in that break time is we're going to be getting all of our social media accounts, the Spaced Out Radio accounts, up to par, up to speed with the information that we're putting out. We're going to be doing tweaking here on the back end on the shows that we have. And we will be coming back running at full speed. So kicking down the door when we come back on August 5th. So we haven't really decided if we're going to run archives like every day during that period. We may have occasional shows, live shows where we may just pop in and do a live show. But it's really to have enough time to sit down and put everything together. Because as you know, we run 7 days a week. So there really isn't time to stop in this current process and make the changes that we need to make in real time. So we will be taking that break time to go ahead and get Spaced Out Radio, ready to go and just better than ever. And sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? So I know you guys are used to this happening every single day, but then if you go a short period of not having the option, then when we come back, you'll just love us that much more. I hope that would be the thing, right? Usually, when you haven't seen someone for a while and then you see them again, it's like this great adrenaline rush and this great feeling that you have. So and plus, obviously, running the show 7 days a week, there has to be a time where the recharge gets to happen. So it's going to be an all-inclusive thing. It'll be a recharge. We'll be getting the social medias together, the show together. Plus, I will be making the transition to radio within that time as well. So we have to get this after-hour show set up in a way that it translates directly over the radio, right? So we're we're testing things out. As you can tell, we have the radio bumpers and things that are going on right now, but we'll be in a strict time slot, right? So that's why I was telling you guys last night with the trivia thing that won't be a thing that'll be happening during the show going forward. So what we may do is because there's a set time frame for the radio show, is we may do the radio show, and then once that ends, it'll be technically like an overtime sort of thing where we could then in overtime jump into something like trivia or whatever else you guys want to do, right? So exciting stuff. I'm really excited to be able to do that and be able to come back like really refreshed and ready to go, ready to kick some butt and take our spot as the number one show in this field, because we have the programming here is top notch, and there is no way in the world that Spaced Out Radio should not be the number one show. And so we're coming back with that that vision, that desire. You know, we're already putting on high level stuff now, but we just anticipate on coming in and taking that number one spot. So that's what's happening in a nutshell, kind of, right? So just thought I'd let you guys know that, kind of reiterated. And I'm sure we'll say this again a few more times between now and our last day on July 19th. So yeah, get your Spaced Out Radio in. Plus, during that 2-week period, 3-week period, if it happens to be that, you have the archives to jump into. There's awesome stuff there as well. So, and plus, you can go over to Social Dig. Social Dig has some awesome archive stuff too. So, gives you a chance to indulge in some other content as well that we may be doing. So, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And yeah, Stu Gerson, Mrs. SOROT. It's going to be, so yeah. So once this is a radio show, we will technically be able to do an OT here. And so that should be an awesome thing, right? Definitely. Woo Riders DG. Rob doesn't know how to trivia judge. You're funny, DG. You're funny. Funny guy. Okay, so with that being said, hour number 3, we're going to get into the paranormal reporter with Travis McFee. Let me go ahead and bring my guy in so we could see what is going on and what's been going on with Travis. Mr. Travis McFee, what's going on? The author, the visionary, the experiencer, that guy right there, this guy, him right there, Travis McFee. How you doing, man?
Oh, that's good. What an introduction. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I've been super busy, dude. And yeah, the author, right? Quite a thing to say. I've been putting out a new book just about every, it's about like it's the 6th month into the year, and I put out 5 books already. I took the 1 month off in February, but yeah, like I said, this series, the Mars Bug Wars, has been quite an epic journey, and like I said, this one that I just put out is a kind of like it's a continuation / kind of like a prequel in a sense. So it's out there. It just went live for like the paperback. The Kindle version is available, and it's a 70-page book. It's more or less like a tale. Like it's kind of like it kind of brings you through the last Great War, and the kind of like the origins of the genetic warriors, and kind of like it. Like I said, it's an epic journey. There it is. Look at that beauty, and it's every page has a beautifully illustrated, colored drawing on it. When like I should say, like the vision is there. Like I was really captivated by this project because it was such a different way for me to write. Because normally I write books. When I write books, I'll stare at a screen and just words, right? And this project was quite different in the fact that I drew all the images first, and then I wrote the book after. So it was a different creative process that I had taken upon myself there. So it was interesting in that sense.
Yeah, that is definitely another way to tackle it, right? Because you think of, you write the words first and then create imagery based on the words, and then flipping that around and creating imagery and then basing the story off the imagery is totally a great idea, genius idea, actually. And what is the title here? Pasquawi? How do you say that?
Pasquawi Mostos. Yeah, and Ouachita. So it's Buffalo Warriors.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So you're getting us bilingual as well. Nice.
Yeah, so that's the Neoan word for buffalo there, and like I said, the Neoan word for warriors. So the whole concept of it is like I said, the Mars Bug Wars and these genetically modified soldiers. They're genetically modified with the DNA of animals, and animals like taking on the animal characteristics and traits of like strength and healing and night vision, and all these certain characteristics of animals that give them that quality of evolution, right? And so what ends up happening is like these these warriors are brought upon this in the last Great War. It's like kind of like a last call, or I should say a last minute decision to bring these guys in. And it's just, like I said, it's a really epic story. It's told from the perspective of a medicine man named Shotgun George. And I got a nice little picture I can show you guys on my screen right now. If I could just, actually, I could probably just turn around like that.
Yeah, let me bring that up for you.
Yeah. So he's preparing, right now he's preparing some tobacco offerings there and a little bit of herbs there, native herbs, to prepare the story of the tale, and kind of like cleanse the warriors and their weapons and stuff, as I should say here. Oh, I got a couple more images right there. Look at that. Wow.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I have some of that stuff. Is that the same stuff you sent over to me? The photos, yeah,
some of exactly. Yeah, you were getting some of, like, I was like, yeah, this is the project that I've been working on. It's like I said, it's images from the first Great War, the last Great War, I should say. And they, like I said, it's a tale of the humanity coming together and looking out for each other and sticking up I should say, sticking up for humanity's future against AIs and robotronics and all that kind of stuff, I should say.
So what is this?
Because it's two conflicting societies, right? The superhuman. Sorry, what was that?
No, go ahead, finish. I'll ask afterwards. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that. So it's two conflicting, like, and so in the whole storyline, like the whole like premise of it is these two conflicting worlds, or I should say visions of the future, are ultimately having this war to reign supreme over Earth, right? So it's like the humanity, one side of humanity wants to evolve through superhuman genetics, and then the other side of humanity wants to evolve through merging their brains with superhuman computers, right? Supercomputers. So it's like they're using these, I should say, these supercomputers to control these animatronics, these droids and drones, and these and they just want to kind of like merge with this this kind of new technological way of life. So they end up going to war with the superhumans, who want to just be, you know, they want to evolve naturally and take on different characteristics and change their forms and advance themselves in different ways. And that's kind of like I said, it creates this civil wars and kind of tears apart the world. And these societies end up, I should say, creating their own factions, and one of them is the Federation of Humanity, and that's where these guys, the Buffalo Warriors, are from, right? And the other side created the Robotronic Legion, so they end up trying to take over the world in that sense. But so it's really, it's really like the natural world fighting the technological world in that sense.
So it sounds like you're talking about where we're probably going. Truthfully, it sounds like AI. It sounds like a little bit of Neuralink as well, turning us into cyborgs, or essentially cyborgs, and then that battle right there. That's interesting, actually, when you think about it. So I mean, and I think that's what people should be seeing and taking away from this. This isn't just a book. This isn't just, you know, something out of, this is something that potentially could be where we're going. And that's what I've noticed with your books, is that it almost depicts a place that we could be going. Like we're literally already on that path, and kind of what things might be once we get there. Is that kind of what inspires you, or do you agree with that?
A lot of the vision, like, yeah, it's like taking from like I should say, like, yeah, like a little bit of realism in there and stuff like that is like it kind of is like the inspiration of it, like the current state of the world and affairs, I should say. And but yeah, it's like for me, like the whole Mars bug wars was like it was like there were some predictions in there for the world and the end. Like, I'm not saying that all of it may or may not happen, but there's definitely some stuff in there poking at our technological future, I should say, and that's part of it, you know, and a part of the whole like I should say, this choice, like to wake up and to see where this where this AI and these technological advancements are really going to take us, especially when we hit the singularity, and then it's like, you know, like that's where it's no going back, you know.
Very smart, Travis. Very smart. Very smart. And I think that it will, when reflected back upon, like 100 years from now, when people are reading your book, that they will say he knew where we were going, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting, or what I'm feeling from the collection of work that you put together so far. And it seems to be just flowing out of you, right? So are you feeling like you've been kind of drawn to do this, or set up to do this? Because some people don't understand the creative process. Like, you know, sometimes you could sit down if you're trying. I'll just start by saying, like, I write music and things of that nature, so I know how it is sitting down and making yourself write something versus being inspired to write something and kind of letting it kind of flow out of you, right? So which one of those are you dealing with? Are you feeling like it's just something that flows through you, like you're being used as like a conduit, you know, to put this together? Or is it you're sitting down thinking of these things?
The whole process for me when I wrote the first two books was I was seeing these things, and I was just doing my best to try to describe that, you know, doing my best to word it out, so it read out perfectly, like the way I'm seeing it inside of these you know, these visions, and are these flashes of this like epic things that are happening, right? And so like for me, that's what I was just trying to convey, was like all the hardest thing to do was just to convey that all that, like those moments when I'd see that, or I'd get those flashes of that connection, or that from that world, or from that I should say that energy of the universe, right? And creatively, that's that, like for me, that's a lot of that times when I'm really in the mode of like connecting with a higher frequency, the spirit world, it will just like, it will throw these ideas, or these creative visions, or this flow to me, or just do my best to try to incorporate that into whatever art project or current thing that I've been doing. But with the Mars Bug Wars, I felt like this was a very compelling thing I had to write and make happen, and it literally took up a lot of nights and days. Like there was like this sense like I had to get it done, you know, and I had to write it. So yeah, there was like compared to other projects, this was one that needed to be finished and written in the way that it was presented. And also towards like the way it just revealed itself, like and it kind of, like I said, it took a life of its own. So it was one of those projects, I should say, that really needed to be that was really like, I should say, locking in my mind. And I'd be doing all these other things, and I'd just be thinking about like, oh yeah, I better finish off that, I better get it done, and yeah, so it was like a immediate thing that had to be done.
Yeah, I love it. Because what I feel like is you know, it's tackling it's tackling really a serious subject when we talk about the future of humanity and where we're going, and how AI is a serious topic as far as how it can advance in the way that it could affect or exterminate humanity, is what some people think. And then also with the neural link and being able to control human beings, potentially hacking into a neural link and being able to control a whole legion of human beings to do whatever, right? It's almost like the whole zombie thing that they were trying to do back in the 50s, trying to turn with the LSD and trying to turn humans into zombies and to be super soldiers. And, you know, I think Neuralink potentially could end up being the same thing, something that's hackable and allowing it to control humans. So you're really tackling serious subjects. But what I'd love about it is you could take the approach of, let me make this just serious, and let me make this, you know, this sort of from a serious perspective. Whereas I think you have fun with it, but you are still tackling the serious things. So I think that balance right there is what makes it interesting, because on the outside it's the Mars bug wars, and you think, okay, and you get into it and you start feeling the what you're actually tackling, and then it kind of hits you like, whoa. So I think it gives that balance for all sorts of audiences to be able to be drawn in, and then also to be exposed to that subject. So I think it's actually really cool the way that you're doing that. And what are you on? I was asking earlier, I think, what are you on, like book 6 now, or what how many books are you in now?
Yeah, so I would be around there about like altogether from all the different things that I have released out there. But for the Mars Bug War series, this would be book 4 of this tale, I should say, of this encompassing tale. As for like the Fort Thunder, there's like a single book out there, and then Pleiadian Guidance and the Pleiadian Who Stole Me in My Heart. So they're those are still available out there too. I do plan to visit some other things in the future, but as for right now, where it's at, like the storyline and where it's at is like it's perfect where it is. So I'm just gonna kind of like take a moment, just like as you guys are taking a break for the space already. I was gonna take a moment and just kind of I should say reground and reconnect here and stuff. But like because I've just been going like hardcore with these books for the last couple months, and for me, I just wanted to take like a moment just to take it all in the universe and be happy with what I've been able to do so far. And it's like it's for me, this one was really a part of that needed to be made, just so people can understand like some of like the concepts of this whole like what drove this war machine, and what caused and created these things to happen, and what led to this managed democracy. And it's like it's a very compelling book. Like you were saying there, it touches on a lot of subjects, especially with evolution of humanity and the future of our vision of our future, right? Whether it's technologically driven, or if it's naturally or enhanced, or if it's if we're going to be visited by the other ones, or if we're going to go out there. Like another part about this book is it talks about our existence, where we are in this universe, and our look at it, and that's the deeper part about it is like whether or not it's another alien species of bugs out there, or if it's we're discovering parts of ourselves out there and from our past, and we're like thinking, well, if they disappeared, like you get a kind of a grim look at like how fragile this just civilization is in general, right? And just like that whole idea of who we are and what we are, and that preservation of humanity's future, right? So it's a very unique subject, like
That is awesome stuff. That is awesome. So we'll have to make sure, man, at this point, with that many books, I mean, you have already done what a lot of people have taken like half of their whole lifetimes to put together. So that's actually pretty awesome, especially when it flows, right? Because you got 7, but those flowed, and then you may sit down and not be able to come with anything for a year or 2 years, depending on how it speaks to you. So it's not even something that that you're going to be able to do, because I've had things like writer's block, and that's kind of what that is, where even if you try to sit down and put something together, it just doesn't come together, right? So it's like a time and a place for things to happen, and you're being spoken to in order to create this this art, in this moment, and it actually resonates in the moment that we're in, because it's very relevant to a lot of the stuff that a lot of conversations that are being had. So whether you're doing that on purpose or not, it does, it ends up hitting at the right time. So it's cool that that's what's going on. What have you been into though, aside from the books and stuff? Have you experienced anything? I know you're the guy that gets a lot of awesome photos and videos of UFOs. Have you had any of those pop up lately? Have you been, have you experienced anything weird lately?
Yes, well, we were getting a lot of orbs in the trees, but when I brought out the camera, it was like it was like it knew, and it just kind of like it went away for a little while, and then just when I was about to leave there, it was like all of a sudden these little tiny orbs like all around, and I was just like laughing because I was like, well, we don't get fireflies up here, right? So it's kind of like a funny thing, like that these orbs are just like kind of like flying around, like little tiny, like it would have been like a small little like a light, almost like a flash of a flick of a lighter, you know what I mean, like that small, like a little like orb like that, just kind of like pasting around. I tried to get video of it, and I couldn't, but at the same time, like I said, these it's a very unique time with the summer solstice and a lot of celebrations that have been happening. So like over the weekend, we celebrated 125 years of the signing of the Treaty 8, and that happened in June 21st, 1899. There was a lot of, I should say, a lot of representatives from the different nations, Cree nations across this, I should say, across Alberta here, and the lands that it encompassed, like the Treaty 8. It's pretty massive signing like of land, and so there was a lot of different representatives. One of the representatives was my great grandfather, Chief Headman Mustas, and his brother Louis, his brother Kinisia, sorry. And they were there. They met with the representatives of the Crown, the Great White Mother, and they met around like 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They ended up having like it was like a nice, I should say, like a nice kind of like outing out in the field, and they just kind of like they went over negotiations under a tent and had the treaty kind of signed right there and then, and yeah, it was like I said, it was 25 years after Canada was first formed, right, as a federation. So it's pretty historic that it was that long, and it took them 25 years to even make it out our way, where there was still untamed Indian land, right, and people were still living the traditional ways, and they had to come up through boats. And I read some of the documents from the guy, and it was like he was expecting like he was like, oh, I'm going to be pulling up to a tribe with like painted faces and feathers and all this stuff, but he was surprised when he got there, and all of them had like they had already like traded from the Hudson Bay Company. They already had like modern clothes, and they all like, it was just men, and they all had rifles, so they knew like they knew that they're either going to be there for a fight or not, right? So it was kind of like a real interesting, and he had the priest with him, right? So Father Lacombe was there with him, and he had a good friendship with him, that like to the point where they were able to teach each other Cree and English and French. So my great grandfather Headman Mustas was very bilingual in that sense. So he was a speaker of the people at the time, and he was like I said, there wasn't really chiefs in our nations out here in the north. It was more or less like the shamans were kind of like the heads or the appointees of the people, right? People went to them for like they'd for any advice or direction and things like that, right? So it was kind of like they just had Mustas go and do it after his visions about it coming to the lands. And so they ended up having him sign the treaty all those many years ago. And so that was signed this last weekend. They released an eagle, had an eagle fly from the ceremony and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Definitely. And so much history, like I say, it goes back, and it's just thinking about that's a whole thing, man, where okay, treaty, right? And wouldn't have had to be that if all the other stuff didn't happen leading up to that. And it's a similar story here in the United States. So when we get into talking about stuff like that, it always we could definitely go deeper on that subject, but yeah. So Deb from Sacramento, thank you so much for your support of Spaced Out Radio. Just checking in. What did I miss? LOL. Yeah, abduct that like button, please, because I can't believe we had last night our guest Lily Nova, and we couldn't hit 100 likes. What is going on, community? Could we get the likes up? Could we just stop everything we're doing right now, and could we just hit the like button? Could we hit the like? All right, I got Travis back here.
All right, there we go. Did I make it through any of that, or did I just freeze right up and get
you did freeze? Yeah, I was saying something about the treaties and how it didn't even have to be that because of what all we know would happen all before that to even have to have a tree. You know what I'm saying? So, and I was saying the same thing happened here in America. So it's
Oh,
yes.
well, what caused that was like there was a huge gold rush down in like the Klondike, right, of Alberta. So like they ended up having like a lot of wars over these areas because they didn't want people wrecking the natural, I should say, the natural like spiritual areas that the people, like I should say, the natives, like the Cree people, like I should say, our nation had lands up in the Jasper area, and we still do have lands there, and like so there was a lot of mining going around in these holy mountains and these holy places. So a lot of natives are having wars, and especially down towards the south, like Calgary and Bragg Creek and all those rivers and stuff. There's a lot of good hunting area down there. So there was a lot of wars that ended up having between the, I should say, the new approaching colonizing world and then the old native world, right? Natural native world. So that's it was really, there was a lot of fighting and a lot of inland wars, and it really wasn't going to stop, right? So the only way to stop was for that treaty to be signed in that time.
Yeah, exactly. So with that being said, yeah, I know, you know, our histories are pretty similar. We have an invisible line that that separates Canada and America. So I mean, we technically we almost have the same sort of history when you really look at it, when you think about it, a lot of the same type of stories. And you know, so with that being said, kind of getting into, you know, some of the, I know you're doing the historical thing right now with the thing you spoke about before. Where are you guys at with that? Are you progressing in that? Or?
So I can just say that investigations have begun, you know, and it's been it's a very tough subject. So like for me, it's you know, I've been just kind of like navigating throughout all that dark the darkness of that history, like you said, and yeah, and making and balancing all like everything else that I've been doing, right? So you know, like working a couple jobs, and then you know, I'm happy I got the book done because now I can just focus on work and also enjoying life, right, at the same time. But it's yeah, it's so it's underway, and it's going really well. We're happy that we have the right scientific tools and means to really I should say narrow down the search, you know, and really get what like is needed there to really clarify the data of the findings, is what I'm going to say.
Let me ask you this, you know, because I want to go back. So let's go way back, almost like, what is, if you went way back in just the whole folklore, all the stories that are told through the natives, what is like the original story? Like, what is like, how in the native vision, how did everything start? Like, what was the beginning, the first story?
All right. Yeah. So for that, like I said, I can't just say that here, because normally it's better to it's part of this. You got to be a part of that ceremony, right? Like you would have to go to a sweat lodge and ask for the origin story to get it, right? But I could tell you, and but like I can't. It's because it's when you're there. It makes so much more sense, you know, everything. Like I could just say it, but it would just be me saying it, and you know, it's because when you're there and you're really embodying that whole essence of the real like the connection of the universe, and you're understanding, you're seeing it, and it all makes sense, right? So that's part of it, right? And the experience of that, because you're opening your connection to that, right, to that world, and it's kind of like you're figuring that out again, right? So
yeah, I get that. I totally understand that. And you know, us who most of the world who aren't, you know, haven't reconnected with our native people, which we're all, I think we going back to it, there's somewhere at some point where we had a connection with the natives as natives ourselves, right? And so yeah, I can understand how there would be, you know, first initially a reconnection process, I would have to say, and then maybe, you know, being able to sit down and go through ceremonies like you're mentioning in order to get some of those, kind of being able to almost like earn the ability to have that conversation. I'm trying to say it the right way, but I think you know what I mean when I say that, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just it's there, and it's taken in the respect, and you get there's so much more to it, right? Like in talks of like the openings of like the understanding of that knowledge, you know, and it's really you want it to be that way, you know, taken in that sense, in that way. But like I could tell you also too, like another part about it is like, because we are very connected with the animals and are in the land and the plants. So a lot of this, like the origin story, and a lot of these like parts of the tales and stuff are are within nature in itself. Like so a lot of these parts of the tales come as like rites of passage through hunting. And that's kind of like why my great grandfather was very concerned about keeping that those traditional ways of life alive. Like that's why it's signed in the treaty, the right to fish, the right to hunt, you know, the right to the education, and the right to practice spirituality, and you know, and these things that he signed for, you know, and the right to practice medicine, medication, and you know, and so it's a very it was a big concern at that time when the world was like, you know, being threatened at the, you know, the way of life, native way of life. So it, like I said, that's the reason why, is because it's so connected with that, right? That it's so connected with the animals and the world around us that you know, to tell some of those parts, or to get some of those parts, I'd have to actually like show you like you know, some of the animals, like even the skulls and like the furs, and you know, the certain type of like patterns on furs and things, and you know, to fully understand these, why they have those, or why they, you know, it's like it's a very natural world, right? Very natural world understanding, and it's very much real, and
I love it.
yeah, like I said, yeah. But like I said, when it comes down to the star people and the ultra terrestrials, that's a very big part about it, and the connection with all the star beings, and how we've had different visitations from many different kind of beings, not just Pleiadians and you know, like what some would say like Andromedans and stuff like that, but we've had like different kind of like alien beings, like including insect beings that are very intelligent and were very esoteric, and they enjoyed hanging around, and they understood culture and ancient tribal life, and they were very much happy to come and hang around, and you know, from the inner earth, or they come from above sometimes, and these beings would sometimes, the ones that would come from above, they would have these crystals, and they'd just be able to talk to you just holding them out. They wouldn't move a mouth or anything, they just hold a crystal out and talk to you. And a lot of them would use these type of technologies to just like to control certain currents of power. So like if they had they wouldn't need much fuel, because this crystal would be able to generate and hold power within it for long periods of time and vibrate within it. You know what I mean? So like they were able to control their ships and through vibrations and sounds and in the level of spirituality, right? So they were very connected to Native people and how we're into healing with the dimensional levels of this universe and connection through the threads of all light that is. And when it comes down to the grays and stuff like that, we were really allowed. We were told never to touch them or hug them because they could get us sick. So just because they were very full of radiation levels, and they kind of enjoyed radiation and different kind of gaseous planets, and so we were told not to touch them because of that, the chemicals. And but people would leave them gifts like you know, like tobacco and different kind of like treats, or like, you know, berries and different kind of, you know, I should say patterned kind of like bags and whatnot. But the grays, they would end up like, you know, they'd come down, they'd visit, and like I said, they'd leave stones, or they'd leave they'd just call upon like a giant asteroid, and it would just land in the land, and people would use that asteroid to heal others, and like medicine people would use those rocks to heal people, and yeah, there's like a lot of stories about things like that, where like our people are very connected to these visitors from the stars and very understanding of their dimensional levels and their connections. Because like I said, they'd come through ceremonies, and they often do. Like, and a lot of times when we're having these like gatherings and these powwows and these celebrations that are very based in traditional alignments with spirituality, they will often be there, but they'll be on such a higher level of frequency and light that our eyes and we just won't like we won't be able to perceive them, you know. But they'll be there, they're there, you know. And then same thing with but like in sweat lodges, in your mind, and you're at that higher heightened frequency, you will be able to see the lights and connecting with it, right? And they do come through the universal connection, and you know, I should say you know, within our ceremonies, and actually be able to heal people and bring that connection from, and that love from the universe to drastically better somebody's health, I should say.
Yeah, you know, and that I just
Did I lose you again, Rob?
No, can you hear me? You can't hear me? You can't hear me?
Oh no. Okay, I'll be right back. Give me a second.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna talk to him about that. It's just the whole native yeah, that's why we have to reconnect, right? You know, you don't really, in this normal, this not normal, this abnormal society that we live in, you forget about things like rites of passage and things of that nature, right? These are things that you know, things that have to be earned, this sort of information, as it is for natives. They have to go through so many processes and ceremonies before information is bestowed, and it wouldn't be any different from us. So that's really why I just want to hurry up and go back and reconnect with our natives here. All right, you're back.
Talking about reconnecting with the natives.
Yeah, because you were saying, because I was like,
just joking. But what's going on? How far did I get before?
You were saying, well, right when you said, you were asking me if I heard you. I heard you, but you couldn't hear me. So it was something wrong on your end. No, but I was just reiterating that.
Okay, yeah, we have a thunderstorm going.
I was reiterating just the importance of, you know, the right, like you said, rites of passage, and being able to get access or have access to that information. It's a process that even like yourself, you have to go through those ceremonies and different things that allow you to unlock other information that isn't necessarily given to you up front. And it's no different for anyone else, you know, and and it just makes me, it reiterates for me and in my mind the need to go ahead and take that moment to reconnect, to be able to begin that process, right? And that's kind of where I left off. But do you have anything you want to add to that? Maybe on a delay.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's one thing, like you know, it's the same thing goes like with a lot of like the natural world, medicine world, and stuff like that too. Is like I don't like to tell anybody you know, what to use or what to take or anything, because like a lot of times the spirit world and universe world will teach you that information, or bring forward that information, what you need to know, you know what I mean? And like at the right times. And like I said, it's more or less like the connection with the universe and where we all are on this walk of life, you know. And it's very important that we take that, like you said, that journey to understand where we are on this wheel of medicine wheel, you know, on this wheel of life, you know.
Yeah, that's actually perfect. That's a great place to go ahead and end it. So what I'm going to do, Travis, is I'm going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up the show. We have like 7 minutes here. So I appreciate you coming in this week and always bringing the heat, never to sleep. Like a guy, Area 51 says, wherever he's at, shout out Area 51. And yeah, make sure, I'm going to bring this back up. Make sure you guys go and get the new book, and get all the books, right? It's a great collection by our guy, Travis McFee's latest one, Buffalo Warriors, The Tale of the Last Great War, which is the prequel to the Mars Bug Wars. So definitely go and get this. And once again, I just got to thank you, Travis, for coming in and dropping information on us like you do.
I appreciate the times we share here with the universe, and I'm so thankful to all the viewers out there, and I'm so happy to all the supporters of the books and the artwork and the vision that it is, and I'm so thankful that I get to come on here and share some of this knowledge with all of you. And I hope you have a wonderful night out there, Rob, and everybody else watching. And take care, and I'll see you around when I do end up seeing you guys.
Yes. Until next time, Travis. And when we come back from that break, you will be radio guys, right? So when you come in on hour 3s, this will be broadcast on the radio. So that's going to be a whole new journey that we're on, a whole new group of people that'll get to hear the stuff that we're bringing and the message. So it's going to be exciting, man. Can't wait to go on that. I wouldn't have anybody else with me, man, but you. Like I said in the beginning, after I interviewed you, I was like, Travis, he's the guy for hour 3, period. And I'll stand on that. So we're almost we're definitely 6 months into this, and it'll be a year before you know it. So definitely thank you for your contributions, and yeah, we will talk again soon.
Excellent stuff, Rob. Right on. You're right. It's it'll be a year before we know it. It's been awesome. It's been excellent. Thank you, everyone. Have a great one. That's all for now. Ex and Maga.
Take care. Later. Yeah. So, okay. Another excellent show. I definitely want to thank our guest, Victor Viggiani, for coming in. He's totally into the subject. And you guys got to go check out ZlandCommunications. His website should be in the description of this video, where he is on top of it over there. I always love having a conversation with him, and we need to do it more, truthfully. And I'm going to reach out to him and see about making this a more regular thing, because it's always great when we talk, and his perspective, as you can tell, on a lot of the stuff that's going on really aligns with a lot of the things that I feel and things that I say as well, right? So just, like I said, more ways to have conversations that move this needle and get us towards where we got to go. So with that being said, let me go ahead and take a look at chat, see if anybody's chiming in. We got Aaron Baca. We got first, let me see. We got Bomber saying, thanks, Travis, with the clapping emojis. We got Aloha Dave saying, thank you so much, Travis. Love learning about the culture. And really, it's everyone's culture when you think about it. We all have a native connection somewhere deep in the past. Whether it's thousands and thousands of years ago, there's still, everyone here has a connection to some sort of native group or organization. And it's really about us all reconnecting with that. Not necessarily Travis's tribe, not necessarily the Cherokees here in America, the Sioux, wherever your tribe is, where you definitely originate from a native source. And so it's about just reconnecting with that native energy, because, I think at the end of the day, and we've already talked about this before, I think a lot of the questions or answers to the questions that we have today end up being answered that way. And we're just lucky to have a guy like Travis who lives within the native community and has that direct native connection. So always interesting. I definitely want to thank Travis for coming in tonight, as always. And it's just been a great show. So I want to make sure everybody gets into their work week, has a great week as well, and just kind of get your mindset for the upcoming break, right? We definitely, not only I feel like we need a break, but I feel like you could take a break too, right? Maybe take a couple nights where you just get to sleep, right? So when you come back after the break, you're fully rested up. You miss the chat, you miss your chat family, everybody misses each other, and we get back together, and all this adrenaline rush just happens and comes from the crowd and comes from us here on live. And I think the feeling that we have once we come back is just going to be epic. So make sure that you guys take care of yourself during that time, and actually kind of think about where this can go. You know, I think one of the big things that we rarely talk about is sharing. And let me just talk about that for a minute, because I think sharing, I feel like potentially, and I could be wrong on this, maybe it applies to some, maybe it doesn't, but you know, I think a lot of people get used to being here. And then when it comes to sharing, right, you'll share, and I'll speak for myself on this, because I'll share with someone that I know is into the subject, right? But maybe I'm not, you know, maybe the stigma keeps me from sharing to someone that isn't. Because truthfully, the way I do, I get out there and I talk to people who don't believe in this. I talk to people who do. And sometimes the people who don't believe in this become interested. Sometimes they don't. But try to bring in those people, you know, as many people as you can when we come back from the break. Is, you know, I look at other channels and they have 400 or 500 people in their live streams. You know, those are people that are out there that are interested in the subject. So it's like they should also be here at Spaced Out Radio, right? Because we have the top content. We're the #1 show. We're going to just say it. You know, we definitely bring the heat here on this channel. So, you know, I would love to see those numbers kind of grow, right? The amount of people that show up at the shows, whether it's during the week or on the weekend. It shouldn't matter if it's the weekend or the week show or the Jessica Jones Cryptid Hunter show. It shouldn't matter. It should be, we should have equal participation across the board. So that's what we're shooting for when we come back. One SOR, and that's how we're going to do it. Unity in the community, one SOR. And, you know, if you love SOR, then you love SOR completely and fully. So with that being said, let me go ahead and jump into we had a super chat tonight. We had Maggie M10 who came in and showed the love for Spaced Out Radio. We do appreciate that. And then Simon Likeable, I saw you. He'd be a good addition to the team, SOR Rob. And I'll put that in my mental database. And, you know, I'm sure he's a busy man, but we'll see. We'll see what can happen there. Definitely all suggestions and opinions and feedback is always welcome. So with that being said, I definitely want to thank all you guys, all the listeners and viewers around the globe, literally around the globe. We have people from the UK, Australia, everywhere. Thanks for tuning your frequency, as always, right here to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. You already know what that is. We own the night, guys. Thanks for coming on in. Make sure you're here for Dave Scott tomorrow.
Conversations that move
See you
the
next
needle.
week. Listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have Spaced Out Radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com. Shop there today and make yourself look good.